Okay, so never mind, right? Just gonna introduce APU a little bit, right? Known for its unique fusion of technology, innovation, and creativity, right? Not only the tech part, but also the creative part, right? So this brown bag session itself is very apt. Why? Because it aligns with APU's vision, right? In transforming future talent. So as part of the payments digital payment week, why we are hosting a brown bag session? Some of you might be wondering, what is a brown bag, right? So brown bag session is actually something where, you know, when we have our lunch in a brown bag, right? And then you have it in a very casual session, you want to speak to each other, I should drop off the suit, right? Make it very casual and interactive, right? So I want everyone, although there is no brown bag, but it is a session where it's relaxed, we want people to interact and also ask questions, right? So now, before we start, right, just a few housekeeping rules throughout the event. Number one, parking for participants. I don't want DBKL to be running in here and clamping all your cars. So those of you who park at the roadside, make sure that you park at M-Ranti parking, right? Pay using your FlexiPay app or else your car will be clamped. 200 ringgit cannot be claimed, all right? Number two, there will be a buggy from the car park from M-Ranti over to the venue, right? If you are obese like me, you want to walk, you can do so, okay? Now, number two, to ensure a smooth and uninterrupted event, I see a lot of phones up. Make sure that it's on silent mode, right? If you want to take pictures of me, switch off the flash, okay? If you're hungry, have your food outside of the hall. No food is allowed in the hall, okay? Social media, right? If you are taking photos of the event itself, if you are writing a long LinkedIn post, right, to talk about the event, remember to tag PayNet as well as PayNet Week, right? If you have friends who is not as privileged as you, where they are watching it in the office or in the school and the university, they can actually go to APU's YouTube and Facebook for the live stream, okay? The handle is at AP University, okay? Now, the last rule, when I have speakers and also panelists on the stage, what I want you all to do is not to welcome them like how you welcome me, right? There's no welcome for me at all, right? So make sure that you welcome them. Let's try one, huh? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome Andre as the MC to the stage. You all can do better lah. Hello, all young people here except for the front row maybe. But the rest, right? You can do better. Come on. Let's welcome Andre on the stage. Okay lah. At least I feel a bit happier, right? When I come here and stuff like that, right? So throughout this session, we will hear from esteemed speakers that we have invited an expert who will share their expertise and valuable insight. So to kick off the morning, I would want to invite, and it's also my pleasure to invite, Professor Ho, Vice Chancellor of Asia Pacific University, APU, to deliver his opening remark.
Thank you. Good morning. How's the energy level now after that few rounds? Oh, better. Going down. Okay. So good morning. I would like to especially welcome Mr. Farhan Ahmad, the Group CEO of PayNet. Come on, let's give him a clap. So energy is still high. Senior management members of PayNet, friends from PayNet. Also a shout out to APU colleagues. We also have some students here who are here to learn. We have academics from other universities as well. All the same, welcome to APU. What a nice What a nice way to start off a new week, right? On Monday, everybody gathering, making new friends, learning new things, right? Couldn't be better, right, in the university, right? I wish that we have this every week. Just want to thank Dr. Chong Lidi and her team for setting this event up. I was told that she was here. There was an event here yesterday until 5 p.m. plus, and after that, she and her team came in to manage team. So, thank you to the team also. And I want to thank PayNet for giving APU an opportunity to be part of the PayNet Digital Payments Week. This is day number 6, I believe, Mr. Farhan, SPF. And we are very happy to host the academic Brownbag here. Right, just allow me to give a quick pitch of APU. Okay, for our new friends who are here for the first time. So APU, we have about 13,000 students. Almost half of them are international students. If you walk around the campus, you will see them. You see all the flags there. The place that you have lunch is a dining hall. Later on, you will see as well the diversity that we have. So from day one, right, our DNA has been technology. And since then, we have looked at how technology also influences other areas. Like, for example, we're talking about payments, we are talking about fintech and so on today, right? And because of this, right, we want to thank PayNet for partnering APU to develop the next generation talents for the digital payments ecosystem for fintech, right? So thank you very much to PayNet. And the objective of the event today is twofold. I was told we want to have a discourse, so we have our panel of experts here today. A discourse on what are the skills that we need for the next generation of talents in this ecosystem, right? Okay. At APU, we do have programs on fintech, accounting, and so on, and they are infused with tech, right? But we want to go further. We want to learn from the very people who are right in the center of the industry, PayNet, right? All your Lazada, I do Lazada, 60 is coming out, all payments go through them. So we want to know, what's behind that. And I think secondly, we have an event on cybersecurity, talking about cybersecurity for payments. We have quite a number of CISOs here, or they will be coming soon. I met them last week as well in another cybersecurity conference. So what are the key issues, right? So APU, we have the largest number of cybersecurity students in Malaysia. So the lecturers here will benefit from that as well. I see some of lecturers smiling, so you are one of them, right? So again, thank you very much. APU is it's an honor for us to host this event today, right, with all the experts here. So to my colleagues, lecturers, and also the students, do take advantage of this, right? Have fun. Ask questions, because you have nice chairs here, we have nice panels here, but no point if you don't ask questions. So give them a lot of tough questions now. Okay, and so thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you. Yep. So thank you so much, Professor Ho, for the interesting opening remark. Next. Last but not least, let's welcome Mr. Farhan Ahmad, CEO of PayNet, up on stage for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you for the invite. Thank you for having us here. It's a very important thing for us to incorporate academia in PayNet Digital Payments Week. So I've been doing this for about 5 straight days now, and so I'm going to sort of mess up all my speeches. So I'm going to try to cheat a little bit, which I normally not do, and look at my phone. But it's very important that we talk about why we're here, really. So I think I want to use a quote that one of my favorite quotes is, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." It's by Nelson Mandela, and that's the primary reason we're here, right? This is, if you want to change something, and I'm here to change something, it starts here, in this building, in buildings like this, and at different places, and people like you who help with this. So I'm not, just a quick introduction, I am not Malaysian. I've spent most of my life in the US. I came here last year, but just over exactly a year ago to run PayNet. And it's been a learning experience for me, something that you guys learn every day, but Of course, I have my own way of learning, but it's a learning experience of me to look at Malaysia and the landscape and what we're trying to do here. And so I'll share some of that experience. But my past is really being an entrepreneur. I start companies. I work for large banks too, but primarily I love to build businesses, build companies, and do that kind of stuff. So I think I want to bring some of that thinking, that mindset to Malaysia. So I wanted to sort of touch about what I see are changes in the academic world, right, that affect us, but everybody else as well. It's a bit philosophical, so maybe stay with me for just a few minutes. So just in my lifetime, I've seen what I would say 3 generations of complete transformative educational overhaul in the real world, not perhaps followed immediately in the schooling world, but in the real world, right? Just before the internet, we were still kind of in the industrial revolution age, and your main commodity, your main value was whoever had knowledge and resource, maybe hard work, they won the game. Because knowledge was scarce commodity, very scarce. And if you studied and you went to school and you learned more than other people and you had more knowledge, you had a really strong advantage over people who had less knowledge. And then in the late 90s, the internet sort of, not a revolution, but that age changed everything. What was the most precious thing in the world was now a commodity available to everybody. Knowledge. But now everybody had the same knowledge. You could get the same knowledge. There's nothing stopping you except your own work to get the same knowledge or advantage as anybody else. You want to do the same thing as Warren Buffett is doing, it's available to you exactly in the same way. Not that's the same way, but almost the same way, right? But all of a sudden, that paradigm shifted. But we were still preparing and learning about knowledge, right? The tools had already eclipsed it. We realized that maybe we don't need to ban calculators all the time because it's now a commodity. People can just Google stuff. Maybe that's no longer the advantage that we had. So the advantage of saying, how do we use that knowledge to transform them into products and services that benefit people in a new way? And that was the entire premise of the internet age that we've been living through for the last 20 odd years, right? To the point that we've kind of exhausted that world as well. Now the next big change is happening. The next paradigm shift is coming, which is Web 3.0 and AI, right? Where now products and services that were the most precious part of the last evolution are also going to be commoditized. We will not build better services. We will not be able to analyze data better than computers. We will not be smarter. In fact, if the first preview of AI has shown me is that the intention here is entirely to make us much, much dumber. Remove any facility that we may have on our own to make decisions and think we're kind of giving it up, right? All the new stuff that I'm hearing are computers now writing your emails for you, querying things, arguing for you, everything, writing your marketing copy for you, all that stuff, even painting for you, drawing art and everything else. So basically, the technology is here where unless we adapt to it, we're going to go down this way, right? But if you stick onto the same methods of doing things, if you still stick onto learning and just saying it's about knowledge gathering, it's about memorizing stuff, it's about now building products and services the same way, I think we will miss the boat because the world has moved on. Technology has moved on. And if whoever wants to be relevant in that new world, we have to adapt how we teach, how we learn, how we think, how we talk, how we interact. And that, I think, is a very profound change. Now, it was easy for me to say for the last 2 revolutions, what became a commodity and what was the difference maker. Well, this one's fresh. I have no retrospective view on this. I have no way to reflect back and say, here was the winners and here were the losers of this revolution. It's hard to know. So what is it? Certainly, I think critical thinking is something that we possess, but so do computers. So AI can have critical thinking. But the value add that I think we'll have is critical thinking combined with a level of emotional intelligence. I think that's where we have an edge, right? How do we just take something that yes, we can solve a problem in a different way, but really put the emotional lens, because as the US federal treasurer once told me in a meeting, he said, we have the best data, we have the best scientists, we have the best knowledge base in the entire world. What we cannot account for is irrational human behavior, because we are all irrational. We are emotional beings. And that's something that you can't put in an algorithm. So to me, maybe, I'm guessing, I don't have any retrospective view. The next perspective is, how do we combine, forget the knowledge, it's commodity. You extract the knowledge. Forget the products and services, they will come. Some computer will build them. I don't have to even code anymore. I can just let the computer code for me. It's about critical thinking combined with some level of emotional intelligence and insight. It's about solving problems that are not logical, right? To a machine. A machine is driven purely by the best outcome for the least investment and the least resources. Well, we are driven by some big changes coming to us, which is the environment, which is all the ESG work that we're doing, the survival of our race, the survival of humans. And so I think that lens is something that only we can bring. So I think that might be a difference maker. So with that, I'll share another quote. Education is your passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. It's a quote by Malcolm X. And that's where you guys come in. How do we prepare the next generation of people who will have to live in this world where everything that we grew up in our world is no longer a difference maker? It's a commodity. And how do we give them a tool to say, how do we stand out? Right? And that's kind of the big challenge. I don't envy the challenge that's in front of you because I don't have answers for you. I can only say, here's the challenge. How do we adapt? How do we teach people in an entirely different way? Entirely different than how any of us here were really raised. Right? That's a big challenge. So then this was very philosophical. So how does this connect to today? Maybe I can bring it now back into what we are here for today. So what is PayNet? PayNet is the national payments infrastructure for Malaysia. We are a domestic payments network with two purposes. We are making sure that Malaysia has sovereignty over our own payment systems. So in case something happens anywhere in the world, we control our financial system and nothing can impact that. And that we make us the most efficient and built for purpose, built for Malaysian system anywhere, because nobody else will build it. That's why PayNet exists. So our products, you may not know PayNet, but you'll know our products, which is whether you use FPX or Do It Now or My Debit or JomPay or eSpec or IBG. Those are all PayNet products. That's what we run. So we build that. And we have laid out a very ambitious 5-year plan for the country. The goal is very simple. I think Malaysia has fallen behind our neighbors over the last decade or so, whereas we were ahead. The goal is to reclaim that. And after 5 years, I want us to be the #1 country in the region in financial services. I want people to come to Malaysia as the FinTech hub, but they think they can come and innovate and build things. I want people to come in and say Malaysia has the best infrastructure ecosystem and the best market to build anything new and to change things. So it's ridiculously ambitious, very ambitious. And having built 4 or 5 startups in my course of time and working in different places, I've realized that technology and everything else that businesses do are commodity businesses. The only difference maker between great businesses, mediocre businesses, and failed businesses are the people. So with that said, there's no such engine that I can magically produce to leapfrog us into this next generation. The only engine we can magically produce are people. And this is the people factory. This is where we're producing the best people in the country. This is where we're producing the best minds, shaping them and giving them that baton, the responsibility for the future, and saying, you know, my generation may have messed it up a little bit for you guys in the back, but we hopefully can give you some tools to fight back and reclaim it, and reclaim the benefits that you might have lost. So I think this is, we have a pretty big strategy, we have a pretty big plan. We need a lot of people to help us with that plan. And there's many things that we need to do in this journey. The one thing we're trying to do today is start the journey. This is not the middle of the journey or the end. This is the very, very first step, which is to come here and build this dialogue, right? Because the people in the front row will not build the future of this country. The people in the back rows will build the future of this country, right? Not us, all you guys. So So we have to start this dialogue, right? Of how do we connect the dots? And we will do many things together. We have many plans that we're working on with our sharing our mission with you guys and connecting and doing collaboration and stuff. But the first step really is the desire. And so hopefully I wanted to take a little bit of this time today, which is what I'm trying to do, is to give you a little bit of inspiration of why there's a mandate for change. It's not a choice, it's a mandate for change. Why to stay relevant, we must follow that mandate. And why we must start today, because there's no time to waste. I've already been here 1 year, 4 years left of my 5-year strategy. Time is ticking, at least for me. But I think it's important for us to move at speed. So I will end it with one of my absolute favorite quotes that I said in my very first town hall when I started at PayNet. It's by a writer called Maya Angelou. And it's a very famous quote, you may have heard of it. And the impact, it's all about the impact that teachers can make on students can make on each other. And the quote resonates with me very well because I can literally trace back everything successful I've done in my life to a handful of teachers. And I write to them and I tell them now, 30 odd, 40 odd years later, hey, you did this for me then, you showed me something there. That's a skill I've been using ever since. So the quote is simply, they will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So let's go and make each other feel very empowered, very passionate, and let's go and take on this next world and do it well together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fan. Fan, I will need you to stay on stage. Sorry. I would also want to invite Professor Ho on stage for a gift exchange session, right? And also a photo session. A round of applause, everyone. Another round of applause. Thank you to all the media. Once again, thank you, Mr. Fan. Thank you, Professor Ho. Apalah ni? Come on. All right. So I think just a quick recap of what are the key things that I mentioned just now. I think a few key things that we can. This session itself, let's get first-hand insight from the industry, right? Important thing here is how do we then equip ourselves and equip the future talents to adapt to new changes, right? I think now we want to start the dialogue to connect the dots today, right? So next up, our first panel session itself, becoming a fintech professional. Careers in the fintech industry, is the grass always greener on the other side, right? So we are honored to have a very diverse panel today to share their insights. They are senior leaders in the fields that they are in. Let me introduce some of the panelists. First up, our moderator for this session, Ms. Azlina Idris, Senior Director, Strategy and ESG of PayNet. On the panel, we have Karen, Advisory Board of FinTech Association of Malaysia. Come on. Hello. Throw the mic. Second, we have Julian Ng, CEO and co-founder of Akru. And lastly, we have Chris Leong, Chief Strategy Officer of SoftSpace. Aslina, over to you. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I'm sure you can't wait for this session. And instead of me asking a lot of questions, I'm just going to ask a couple, maybe 3 questions to kind of like set the tone and the scene for all of you to then follow on with the questions, because I understand that I've spoken to some of you. You come from different business schools, from technology schools, and from different universities, and you have some burning questions that you want to ask those who are actually in the fintech industry, right? So let me just set the context with a brief background from each one of the panelists, so that you know what kind of education did they come in with prior to joining the fintech industry. And maybe I'll start with you, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Karen. I'm on the board of advisory at the FinTech Association. I started when the association with Chris actually back in 2016. And then from there, I was the partnership director, VP, president, and then now on the board. I don't think I can go any higher. So how did I start in the fintech industry is actually quite bizarre, because I am a CIM graduate. My first company was Saatchi & Saatchi. So I did like 10 years in advertising and marketing and FMCG. Decided to take a break because the babies keep coming. I have 3. So I took the 10-year break to bring up my children. I want them to be brought up by me, by my style. But I also know that I don't want to be a housewife forever. So I did my master's in that 10 years. And I also know that I want to brand myself. So how would somebody who is from marketing advertising background gets into fintech? Because during that time, 2015, fintech was a buzzword. And I asked my friend, I said, I want to get into fintech, but the only thing I know is CASA. Okay, who doesn't know what CASA means? See, that's exactly how I was. CASA means current account, savings account, right? So how do I get into fintech? Being a Chinese girl in Malaysia. Take a guess. I did a diploma in Islamic finance. So I knew that self-branding and getting myself known in the industry is by differentiating yourself. So the thing is, like, anybody from any background, even a housewife like me, can be a fintech entrepreneur.
So from a housewife to a fintech entrepreneur,
Yes.
coming back to the working scene in that context. Now, Julian has a different take and comes from a different perspective. I think if you close your eyes and you hear him speak, you will get the hint. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Julian, and I co-founded Akru, which is an investment company for everybody. Basically, we're not a high, like the Goldman Sachs type, but we really want to open up investments to everybody. And I've always been in investment banking. I had an existential crisis about perhaps 10 years ago. And it's based on this fact, that I was a fund manager at that time and an investment professional. And my crisis was that I couldn't predict the future. Okay, as a fund manager, you're supposed to do just that, right? But I realized that nobody can do that. And so we now come to this stage of investing, and I would love to tell you more about this investing revolution that's going on that is based on not predicting the future, right? It's called passive investing as opposed to active investing. And it's just based on exactly that, doing nothing and letting the market do the work for you. And we are actually in a very, very exciting juncture of this journey, because it's all about AI right now, and it's all about what technology can do for you to maximize returns and to help you make as much money as possible, right? And so how does passive investing fit into all that? And I'll be very happy to tell you the story later, but that's where I, 5 years ago, founded Akru based on then the very new guidelines from the Securities Commission to set up businesses like this. And today, there are a few robo-advisors in the market, and we want to take on the active investors. So that's where I.
So Julian is being very modest. He started out from investment banking, but he pivoted once before. Can I tell? I mean,
yeah, please.
okay. So have you all heard of BFM? Yes? There you go. He used to be one of the main financial journalists for BFM. In the morning, all those hard-hitting questions, yours truly did it. So yeah. So that's him, and then so is a 2 times pivot kind of situation.
Yeah, that was fun. I actually went in there into radio quite coincidentally because I just quit my fund management job just like that. I had nothing to do, and then I went to a party hosted by BFM, and then the rest is history there. So I spent 5 years on radio, had a lot of fun.
So isn't it bizarre? You have one fintech professional who joined the industry from the kitchen. You have another one who joined it from a party. So let's now hear the third person, and is not the third fiddle. We have Soft Space, and one thing about Soft Space is that we've been working. They are the first fintech that PayNet has worked with. And one thing that's good about Soft Space is that we started working with them in 2018, and this is about 5 years later. They've just completed a huge funding round, and they are now expanding to 23 countries and working for 70 institutions, including PayPal and Tyro Neobank. So I don't want to take the thunder from Chris, but Chris, can you tell us, how do you enter the fintech industry?
I think my whole career can sum up to a couple of one quote, basically. Smart enough to learn fast, but dumb enough to ignore the odds. That's me generally. Because if you look into my career, I started as an electronic engineer doing E&E. So at that point in time, only test engineer, I can do test engineering, which is going to be very boring for me. So no offense, but I don't like the kind of test engineer job. So I just quit and do programming. And I was with a stint with Microsoft. And I did a business, I failed. Then I tried into entrepreneurship in terms of with working with Creator Fund. Then one day, suddenly there seems to be an interesting idea to do payments. And we, as a group of co-founders, we decided, okay, it seems very interesting. It seems not to be too difficult. Let's try to do payments. And I think that was a really crazy journey because anyone who does payment infrastructure will know that payments is really complicated. It's like doing a PhD thesis. They don't tell you what to do. Every country is different. Every country is different. Every localization is different. So I started being in payments, being in all my career, doing things which I have no idea what to do, which I have no background what to do. I think it's just trying to figure out and trying to solve the problem of gaining enough knowledge. And I think that's where we are, where I did. And I think just proud to say that most of the core funding management team, even though we provide very complicated payment infrastructure to the rest of the FI in the world, we all started with no payments experience. None of us works for banks before. We just go and read the specs and figure things out and question. Why can't we do things better? Why can't we do things better? So I think for me, being in fintech is just being dumb enough to ignore the odds and smart enough to learn fast and be creative about it. Yeah.
So by now I think you have kind of like get the nuance about what does it take to be in the fintech industry. It's not the hard skills, it's actually the soft skills, right? So let's now go a bit deeper. Now let's look at the perspective of the soft skills that got them to where they are, right? And I'm gonna stick with you, Chris, right? how does anyone here define success? Anyone? Succeeding many times, right? Is it? Sorry? Money. Yes. Okay. That's important. But I think one perspective that resonated with me was in the later part of Digital Payments Week, late last week, during the funding rounds. Have you all heard of FAVE? Yes? Okay. Do you know how many times FAVE had to try before it succeeded? 69 times before it got its own funding. So the definition of success in the fintech world is never giving up. And I think Chris will mention his perspective of how do you define success. Maybe Chris, do you want to elaborate a bit more on that?
I think the journey of soft space is very interesting because I think the question is that I don't think we are smarter than anyone else. I think we are just more crazy enough to actually try again and again, and I think learn every time through every rejection, and we fail very fast. So don't know whether you guys know, I think we started in 2012 when fintech is not even a word, it's just technology for banks, it's just startups. So at that point of time, when we talk to banks, banks are not very receptive towards us. So we talk to all of them, each and every one of them, and all of them in Malaysia say, no, you are too small. I only deal with big vendors. And it seems to be very, very impossible because they say, I like your technology, it's interesting, but you're too small. You can't play the game. So we tried, and we not only tried in Malaysia, we tried everywhere in Southeast Asia to talk to all the banks. And we got the first break in 2012, end of 2012, with Kasikorn Bank, one of the largest banks, to start license our solution for MPOS. And I think when we first started, one of the marquee product that is being used by Tyro, the largest neobank in Australia, or PayPal or whatnot, is also to start with a very crazy idea to say, how can we convert the phone into a contactless payments? And if you ask industry people and you ask experts, the more you ask experts, they say, this is impossible. The phone will never become a payments terminal because it's not secure, the phones can hit your jack, which crazy person will want to use the phone to do this? So there are many things that people will tell you it's impossible. So we try and ask, how come it's impossible? Why can't? I think, why is it impossible? So every time people ask, it's impossible, it can't be done, because of this. They say, okay, interesting. So if I solve this thing in different way, principally I look into it, can we do it again? And so we figure and try it out, and we were very thick-faced as well. So at the point in time, we approached PayNet, do you want to do a POC on this based on certain guidelines? And PayNet decided to give us a try, and that was history. And we managed to sell it to all of the world and license it to all of the world and become the very pioneer in this technology. And I think success for me, if you ask me, if you ask me what success, I have no idea what success is. I don't consider myself as successful yet, but I think generally means that success is or satisfactions towards the journey is to keep on trying and solving meaningful problems, or to understand and learn. And if you look into all this, every rejection is an experiment, and it's a learning opportunity to become better, whether as a person or as a company or as the product.
So why we collaborated with SoftSpace in those days is actually simply because of financial inclusion. One of the key pain points of small merchants is that when you have, the machine that you use for tapping your phone, there's actually a rental fee involved, right? So the problem that SoftSpace solved was that you just use your handphone, put your My Debit card or your ATM card behind the handphone, and it can actually take payments. So that's the kind of like low-hanging pain points that we tried solving together with SoftSpace. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, the traction isn't as strong as in other countries, and we're trying to crack the code again to actually make sure that this kind of like proliferates, right? So that's the financial inclusion aspect on that particular part. And to us, always trying is actually the key to all of this. Now, I'm going to move on to Julian. Now, how many of you in here are qualified in risk management? Okay, 3. Okay, not so. I'm not gonna get any backlash then, because what Julian is gonna say is that risk is your friend, right? So, can you elaborate a bit more?
Yes, in finance and in investments, there is this saying, right? High risk, high returns, low risk, low returns. And at various points of your life, and even at the same point of your life with different types of financial goals, sometimes you would need to take high risk. For example, if you're going to invest for your retirement at age 25 or 30, you need to take high risk. A risk is then your friend because it's performing as advertised. Yeah, if the market is going to crash 10%, that's a good thing for you because you can then get into the market and buy. And over the long term, because the market is a reflection of the innovation of people, the progressive economic policy of governments who are hopefully voted by people into governments, they would want to reflect that aspiration of people, right? And that's risk. One day, the market can go up 10, 20%, and then the next day it crashes. That doesn't mean that risk is a bad thing, right? The crash of the market is a bad thing. It's just the investment vehicle is just performing as advertised. And therefore, you should buy into that if you're investing for the long term and then make money over the long term with the bounce in the market. But we also believe in taking risk efficiently. And what that means is very simple. You need to be very diversified. You can't just like buy one company and then that company can go bankrupt. That is not efficient risk taking, right? But if you diversify, if you have a portfolio of many investments, one company in that portfolio can fail, but overall, if the portfolio is reflecting, the innovation of people, the growth of countries and economies, over the long term, your portfolio would do very well, and therefore, risk is your friend.
So, okay, just a follow-on question from there. Actually, Akru is looking for people. So, what kind of skill sets are you looking for?
One of my favorite shows on Netflix is Black Sails, right? And if you've not watched Black Sails, this is a show about pirates. And I thought pirates were like like robbers, and like they would just go and attack these legal ships, right? And then try to make money out of that. But from that show, Black Sails, they're actually a very democratic bunch, and they try to see their position of power, bargaining position, and negotiate to get to a better place. And the very thing that it reminds me of are like startups. The startups today are kind of like pirates. They go hustling with the hope of getting to a better place, right? And so, to me, a startup is like just assembling very talented, very good people, like pirates, right? To at the end of the day, right? You asked what was success earlier. Is really to make some money, right, with a startup. But at the same time, it's also doing what you like, right? What have you got to offer? What can you contribute to an assembly of people so that we can go out there and change the world, right? I mean, the speech that Farhan gave earlier, we want to change the world. And I think that with the startups today, Akru is not excluded from this. We want to get people, I don't want to see myself as the boss, but I want to see myself as part of the team so that we can work together to offer something to the ecosystem out there. And so, yes, we are looking for like-minded people who can go and sail around being pirates at the end of the day, make money out of it.
So he's looking for pirates. Anyway, Karen, and I'm asking you this question because there were a few burning questions that I was getting from the lecturers. They hear things like metaverse payments, Web3, NFTs, right? You gave them very sound advice to one of the lecturers, and I think all of us should actually listen to it. The 3 key elements you say. Yeah, what are they?
What are they? Okay. Just a little bit of backstory. In 2015, my partner and I decided to start our own boutique compliance firm, unheard of in Malaysia because mostly compliance services are provided by the Big Fours. We thought that we can make a difference. We did. We managed to exit and sell our company to RHT Singapore, which is a collaboration with Taylor Wessing in London. So they were trying to create a lot of little boutique consulting firm to dominate Singapore. No part of that. So coming from somebody that is from marketing and advertising who knows nothing about banking and finance to selling compliance for banking and FIs, right? It's like, how do you do that? So it's very simple actually. Any gamers here? Come on, guys. I can't see any hands. Gamers. Thank you, Melly. When you play any game, you must know the rules. How do you get your chicken feed, right? How do you get your points? For Minecraft player, how do you get your diamond eggs? All these rules are no different from what is practiced in the FI world. Okay, don't get confused, don't get overwhelmed, intimidated by it. Anything that is in the financial space, you just break it down into the 3 categories. Number 1, regulators. Regulators don't change. Policies don't change. They do change maybe once in 10 years. They tweak a little bit, but they don't change, right? And then number 2 is technology. Don't get intimidated by people like Chris who tells you about anything technology. Because technology is just a vehicle. You can go to Singapore by bus, by train, right? You can drive, you can walk. That is technology. And the third one is your consumer. Who are you talking to? Are you a B2B or a B2C? And once you understand that, this is overview, you will not be overwhelmed by what FI does, or FI meaning financial institutions, or the fintech companies does. It's as simple as that.
Okay, you give a very good example because a lot of people were asking, what's Web3, right? Break it down into that simple example, just for the audience information.
Web 3.0 is quite complicated. I don't want to simplify it and then they will bash me outside. I'm sure all of you have actually experienced it. In the most simplest form is that when you want to sign up a website, it will ask you, do you want to sign up via your email or by your Google, Facebook account? That is Web 3.0, where that is called the single sign-on process, and that is the start of, or one of the elements in Web 3.0.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to stop my questioning because I think a lot of you have a lot of questions just now at the side. So, can you just please put your hands up and tell us who you are, where you do come from, and your question? Anyone? Oh, suddenly quiet. Anyone? No? Where? Okay. Mic to...
You can use my.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for this session. My name is Dayang. I'm from Kerlek. I just joined Kerlek for the past 4 months. Before that, I was in a regulator for 10 years. Probably this question is more applicable to Julian and Karen. I think Julian, because you were an investment banking before, right? And Karen is also a mother. Probably, I think, because I recently just changed the course of my job because I thought I wanted to be in the regulation space for the whole of my life because of stability and all. But then I decided to change to fintech, which is totally different. It's very fast. It's not as stable. Maybe we heard about your success story about changing your course of work. Probably you can share with us maybe the top 2 challenges or your struggles so that we know the reality of it.
Thank you for your question. Akru uses Kerlek actually, so we know your company. It was very scary when I just quit because I did not agree with the philosophy of doing things, and even after a few years after quitting, I still worry about things, you know. But you also have to, I think earlier on, the question was being asked, right? What is success? And the answer, the straight answer to that was money. Actually, it's a little bit of money because that's not the full equation, right? So as a start, you have to have enough money, all right, to change careers. And it's all about when people ask about the work-life balance, it's really sometimes just doing the work to make money, even if you don't like that work, right? If you're in a place where you got a job and they're paying you some money, or they're giving you the potential to rise, to make enough money, you should stick with that job for a while, I think. You know, and make that amount of money so that you have your savings. There is this very naughty term about it, right? Nicholas Nassim Taleb, this author who wrote The Black Swan, he calls it, I don't want to say the word, right? But it's a 4-letter word. He calls it FU money, right? You got to have enough FU money so that you can say that to your job, right? You have enough money to walk away and to think about things, to see what you want to do for yourself. And after you do that, after you quit, you change paths, then you have enough for yourself to think about things, right? It doesn't have to be filthy rich. It's just enough for you to have a decent life without struggling. The young people today call this the FIRE movement, you know. FIRE is financial independence, retire early, right? This is a movement that started like, I think 5-10 years ago with the revolution of passive investing, right? They can just leave their investing and get it done through some passive investing vehicle and then hustle on the side, make enough money to really think about life. And FIRE is not like retiring early and doing nothing else, you know. It's really about quitting a day job and doing what you like doing best. And if that pays you, fine, you know. So I would say get a decent amount of money first and then quit and think about things, like see what you want to do. And it's scary. Actually, it's scary, but we also have to confront our fears, because at the end of the day, we want to do something that fulfills us. Yeah.
Go ahead. I think your first question about success, when you hear somebody say the word mother and investment bank in the same sentence, that is success to me. Right? So the advice to all the ladies here is like, you can have everything, just not at the same time, okay? So back to your question. The challenges is like from Julian's point of view would be from an entrepreneur where you need money to sustain yourself and the team. I think from where I'm coming from with the association's experience is that we have a lot of startups who wants to venture into fintech but are a little bit confused as to whether they are a regulated entity or not. because each of these category play differently. You have different playbook. And if you are a regulated entity, as from your experience, it costs a lot of money, but it is also very confusing. So what the association did was we started a program called the FinTech Booster, whereby we get experts in the industry. Let's say, for example, we get SoftSpace to conduct a one-day workshop for the entrepreneurs to find out whether, in terms of their tech capability, are they up for it or not, or are they still at the infant stage? And then we also have, for example, ZICO law to come in and talk about like the product that you want, whether it needs to be regulated, whether it is a traditional license, or you can go into sandbox. So sandbox, as per the name suggests, is something that you find in a playground. Okay, so the regulator let you play in the financial playground to see if your product is up to mark, is good enough, it protects the consumer before they give you the license, right? So that is a sandbox. So if you are an entrepreneur, like I said, I think what Malaysian youngsters, entrepreneurs need is to have a campaign membaca. Okay, for the foreigners, campaign membaca means a campaign to read. A lot of them don't read. They come with questions that you can find in the website, right? So for example, this youngster came to me and said, Karen, I know remittance needs license. I don't want to do remittance. I want to do peer-to-peer transfer. So my dear, that is remittance. You need license, right? So I don't know where you're coming from. Collect is a very good company to start with. You have very good backers from Razer India. And then I see that they have very big, ambitious plan to conquer Southeast Asia. So I think you're in a good place.
Yeah. So one thing about Collect, we just want to put a word in as well. They're going to be a direct participant of PayNet real soon. Direct debit participant. So worry not. I know it's a scary journey in the beginning. You may not get your grip yet, but give it a couple of years. That would be my advice.
Okay.
Because I pivoted too. See, you want to add? Yep.
Yeah, I understand your feeling from a regulator or where things are very fixed or very stable. So I also gone through many journey, and I think one of the things come back from my I think any Asian mother will tell you that look, I started from an MNC company, moving to a government agency, going to a startup. My Asian mother will say, "You crazy, MNC money." Iron rice bowl. You don't get fired. You get good. You can travel. You don't need to worry about money. You don't worry about your job stability and whatnot. So I always say crazy. But I think the North Star that I have during this journey is that you will not know whether you'll succeed because you can only see 2 steps ahead. You can't see 10 steps ahead. You won't know whether you're doing good or not because things keep on changing. The variables are there and whatnot. I think the key thing that I advise myself, I always look into myself is what kind of person you want to be after this journey. And I think throughout all these changes, throughout all these challenges, throughout these variability changes, I think the only constant factor is yourself and the person doing it. And if you look into it and say every challenges that you go to is a journey to improve yourself, to be better, then you won't fail. Because at the end of the day, you can get a better job because you'll be a different person at the end of the light, at the end of the tunnel, whether you succeed or not. Of course, Collect is a good company that will succeed. I believe will succeed. But again, when you come out of the journey, you'll be a different person, and then you'll be a lot more viable or a lot more employable because, like what Farhan mentioned, you know what? You might think that being in a job that's stable like MNC is iron rice bowl. Look at the tech layoff a couple of weeks ago. It's no longer, it's just a perception. Look at how AI will change the industry. I think you being in the same position, being to learn the cutting edge, to be able to hone your skills in terms of building a character that can handle changes will be much more valuable than just being in a place where just doing the same thing day in, day out, from my point of view. And that's how I guide myself.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Good. Okay. Any other questions from anyone before I continue? Yes, the gentleman at the end there. I think the mic is coming to you. Tell us who you are, where do you come from? Yep.
Hello, good morning. My name is Dr. Mohsen. I am with Monash University and I basically teach FinTech. So my question is very specific. For my undergrad students, what skills are you looking for while hiring in FinTech industry? Because when we look at different reports, they say that there are not enough coders in the market, there are not enough specialists in the market, and most of the responses which I get from the industry are very, very generic. So no exact skill sets. Like for instance, I'm designing a new module now. It's on applied FinTech. We can teach all what is payments, what is RegTech, and all this. This is all superficial stuff. But what hardcore knowledge are you looking at? Is it coding language? Is it expertise in terms of, for instance, how to build an efficient frontier and all that? So what are you basically looking for?
I would say all three of you need to answer this because this is a very diverse kind of industry. Maybe starting with Chris. Do you wanna? Yeah.
I think it is not okay. You mentioned a couple of items that you talk about coding, RegTech, and understanding payments, whatnot. For me, those are just knowledge. I think this is good. You must have the basic fundamental knowledge to actually go into. But I think applying FinTech knowledge, whether it's from a RegTech, payments tech, or whatever tech you're talking about, and this keeps on changing with Web3 and whatnot. I think the key part is how do you merge all this together to offer customer value? While it's vague, let me explain to you in general. Because having knowledge and be able to combine it to create a product and also design the user flow and understanding the principle behind regulation is very, very rare skill because you are combining different items. You're not only a good coder, you need to understand structurally how coding is going to be done, how you achieve that from a technology channel perspective. But then you need to also look into, okay, what is the principle that you want to solve from a regulatory perspective? Because in regulation, they'll give you a principle. How do you use technology to actually mix that? And then key question is, what kind of value you want to create to your customer? When you answer that question, it comes back into what are the processes that you need to do. Step one, step two. So it combines 3 or 4 skill set and into applying it. And I think those are the more valuable jobs. If I'm talking about more valuable jobs, of course, nowadays you talk about FinTech industry, want to go, okay, as long as someone is critically can code, they are good enough, then FinTech will hire because I think a lot of people are hiring tech professions. But if you, I'm talking on the basis that if you want someone to be really excelling and that product knowledge, that critical thinking, understanding boring regulatory or boring payments stuff, and knowing the principle, and I think the principle applying it into solutions are generally very hard to find because it involves critical thinking skill, involves understanding deeper enough, and involves understanding how technology can solve that problem. So those are the items I think that is hard to get, I think, a rare skill from my side anyway.
Yeah, I think I very much concur with Chris. Just specifically from the viewpoint of Akru and our journey currently, Akru is a company that is very small currently, but we subscribe to an outsourced arrangement largely. Okay, so we very much believe in the outsourced arrangement as far as those hard skills that you talked about, right? That can exist in the various outsourced entities that serve us. For example, the coders and the project managers, the content managers. That kind of skill can be siloed into any one of those entities that service us, and those outsourcing companies could be big or they could be small, right? And they have a need for those skills that you talk about. But as far as the critical skills that Akru needs from the management viewpoint, and this is where the idea of a soft skill comes in. And being from an investment company, we find that surprisingly, industry people, right? The old banking industry people are not very suited to fintech, surprisingly, because they have a very fixed way of doing things. They are specialists and not generalists, especially for a startup, for a fintech startup. If you have intentions to join for a fintech startup, you need to be a generalist. You need to have critical thinking, and you need to think outside of the box to be able to push the envelope without actually ball and chaining yourself to the banking way of thinking. And we find that Akru has had that problem with our investment people. It's a revolving door. They have been coming and going because they can't seem to get used to this new way of doing things as a fintech would require. So I think that's good news for the people currently, for students currently, because they don't come with a baggage, so it's good news for them. But then it would be bad news if they don't open up their minds and having that enthusiasm to really wanting to do everything, wanting to be generalist and have that critical mindset that Chris is also talking about. Yeah.
So the association has had a few engagement with several universities, and I know for a fact that the challenge is not actually how innovative or forward-thinking, future-proofing universities that you guys want to be. It's actually the MQA, which is the entity that controls the quality of syllabus in Malaysia, right? The questions that you ask make it sound like fintech companies are only run by one person, which is someone who knows how to code. Julian, you know how to code? No, I also don't know how to code. Do you know how to code? You also don't know. See, and all of them are successful people. So the theory is, it's easier to talk to your coders about banking than to teach a banker how to code, right? What is needed in the industry now is kick-ass product manager who are hybrids of everything, right? So how do you get hybrids of everything is to have someone who knows the understanding, the principle of technology, not necessarily needs to know how to code, and then also understanding of compliance, which if you play any game, you will be damn good at compliance, so nothing to be worried about. And then also understanding the consumer in the sense of the user experience. That would make a fantastic fintech talent. Yeah.
So does that answer your question? Because the thing is, you're looking at the situation where you need to create a well-rounded individual. Very tall order, very vague kind of description, but the long and the short of it is all three panelists is saying the same thing. One is a critical thinking, the other one knowing a bit of everything, and knowing enough when to stop, start, or do something more, right? So seizing those opportunities is actually quite key. Now, any other questions? Does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-on question? Yeah, another follow-on question, please. This one over there. Yeah.
Actually,
There's two more there. Okay,
like
we're heating up. Good.
like Julian has also said that you outsource a lot of skills, right? So basically, when you outsource, that is a tech part of it, right? So the technician also need to know the finance bit as well, right? And finance bit, when we are talking about AI based passive investment, it is not like basic, it is hardcore finance. So if fintech is all about marketing and selling, then it is marktech, which can be market anything. You can sell anything, but it is just fintech is a product. Then it is not a fintech professional. It is just a marketing professional selling a fintech product. Marketing professional can be selling any other product. So it is just a product selling. But when we talk about fintech professional, needs to be a guy who knows finance. That's my perception, at least. I don't know what's the perception in the industry. Needs to be a guy who knows a bit of both. But when I say bit of both, then definitely there are specializations in different fields in that. So when we like because when you say critical thinking already being taught at universities for everywhere, it is so generic that you, for every field, if I ask here, there is a farmer, he would say I need critical thinkers on my field, right? So it is so generic that we need critical. Compliance is required in every IT industry, also require compliance. So this is not a skill which is specific to fintech sector, right? So here we are talking about specialized skills within fintech professionals, right? I understand at the end, because to me success is not defined by money. This is just a byproduct of success. It is not money. So if you are looking at, I build a startup, sell it off, I'm a successful guy. Everyone has a different perception, but that's my perception. So when I, just quick final statement, that when we talk about the students becoming fintech professionals and they opt for a specialized module because they are learning critical thinking in all the other disciplines as well. So that's what I was referring to, that what specific jobs you are looking for. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much
Yep.
for that.
Okay.
If I can add to this, I think I would say what I've seen that's missing in the country by large is product leaders. I think that's a skill that's not in Malaysia, that's very much lacking, right? Product composes all of this, right? It is understand the customer, asking the question why repeatedly. See, you said there's a specialist knowledge to build fintech. He just said he built this thing that nobody else has done, never had a clue about payments. I built 4 companies. Each time I built it, I had no knowledge in that space whatsoever, right? The ability to dig for that is what a good product manager does. Karen, you said that pretty clearly. Product manager. So if I were to be very specific, I would say build a curriculum to build product managers. There is courses out there in the world that India does it really well. India is probably some of the best product managers out there, right? We can do the same thing here. That curriculum, I think, is missing here.
Yep, I very much agree with that. Product is something that is lacking. And I have a feeling that it's something that you can't really learn in books, although that also exists. And also, I feel your question, because I think you're specifically coming from the viewpoint of the financial discipline, right? And what other hard skills can they have in order to apply for a job with fintech? Now, let me give you an example as far as that is concerned, because we have a case study here, right? The finance professional who comes in and whose knowledge of the financial markets, very specialized but very narrow, right? And, we are a team of 5, and if that finance professional comes in and we tell this person to look at the UX or the UI of how we do things, whether it's at the front office or at the back office, there is huge opportunity for this person to better themselves. And I'm saying this euphemistically, right? Because the bad news is that this narrow-minded finance person actually does not know how to do that, right? The other thing is that, the government right now, I feel, right, and I think it's a good thing, the Malaysian government right now is throwing money at the fintech sector, right? And I think it's a good thing, because it's going to be money well spent, right? But they need the due diligence, right? They won't just write the checks for you, right? They need to see what you're selling, right? And then that's where you have the roadblock, right? So if you ask the finance person to do that pitch, would they be able to do it? It's a huge challenge, but it's a huge opportunity as well, right? We need that all-rounded person to use the backing of that financial investing knowledge to be able to expand and then do that product, get that money and do that product.
Go ahead, Chris. There's one more question at the end there. I'll get to you in a short while, but then Chris.
I'll just answer your question. You're right to say that if you're talking about MarTech and whatnot, so for specific technologies or specific skill set that fintech is more focused on, I won't say it's not important in other discipline or whatnot. Is in specific, how do you handle information security? and how do you handle cryptography and whatnot. So when you design a system, when you go into, say, example, a marketing company, you might design the system or database where you put all the customer database in one part and whatnot, because that is generally acceptable, because you want to move fast and whatnot. But for fintech, because you're dealing with customer data, regulatory and whatnot, generally it means that the way you design information security, you need to have fundamental best practices in terms of breaking down the database. How do you want to architect the solution into many different layers? How do you want to handle the end-to-end encryption? How do you store data? How do you do all those items? While depending on which fintech company you talk about, because some are more marketing oriented, some are more hardcore infrastructure, but having those kind of concept and having those kind of information security principle, plus also in terms of understanding, in terms of how data privacy, how to protect data, will be very useful, especially for fintech professionals, because in other parts, the scrutiny is not so crazy. It's important, but it's not so crazy. For fintech, it's really crazy. And for any students who are able to have deep knowledge or deep methodology to do those, will be able to become a great product manager, because those are the things that typically most product managers from a B2C company, they might not appreciate those kind of minute details, which is very important for fintechs in general. I think that's the part.
Yeah, I think in essence is that, to build products, you got to have general knowledge on across many areas in order to build the entire suite. So that's what's lacking. Okay. Gentleman over there, name, where do you come from, and yeah, your question.
Okay. Good morning to Professor Dr. Ho and also Jefahan, and to all the panelists. I'm Kelvin from MBank Group, who currently work as an internal auditor. And actually, one of the role of the internal auditor is to ensure the compliance with the existing laws and also the regulations. And actually, if you look at the directions from B&M, right? So actually, he has been expected that the financial institutions and also the respective stakeholders to put in a greater focus on how we combat the fraud and scam related incidents relating to the electronic banking transactions. So I just would like to ask, actually, what are the roles and also the enhanced measures they are going to put in place by PayNet and also the fintech industry in combating the fraud and scam related incidents relating to the electronic banking transactions?
I think you kind of like fast forwarded one panel. The next panel is supposed to field that question. And the gentleman who is supposed to field those questions are sitting in the front row there. But if you can just hang on to your question for a bit, we'll get to that. Clarence, you're putting your hand up, but yeah, okay. One question there in front there. Right at the back. Can somebody get the mic to him? Yes, please. Tell us who you are, where do you come from, and what's your question?
Good morning, Madam Moderator. I'm Richard Wee. And unlike everyone here, I think I probably am the only lawyer here, together with my two colleagues. I came because even the first event I attended, I just wanted to sit at the back and literally listen and learn. I want to just make a few comments and some observations. Actually, Karen, I'm involved in the current version of FinTech Booster. I think from FSA moved on to MDEC under Noizam and under Tang. So we work quite closely with them. Other than Jonathan, a good friend of mine is Zico, who currently is the known leading lawyer for FinTech. There's a few others of us who are pretty lurking at the back.
So are you from Zico or which?
No, I'm on my own firm.
All right, okay.
He is the Richard Wee.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Oh, okay. It's been an honor to help FinTech Booster. Just to share something here with you first before I not really have a question, but more to post about compliance issues. In my experience in FinTech Booster, it is fantastic to see. Oh, by the way, the three of you, congratulations, because you are a serial entrepreneur, and I don't think you need to meet people like us very often. But at the FinTech Booster, I get to meet many young, burgeoning startups, and the enthusiasm is very contagious. Unfortunately, they don't understand the law. So I think, in fact, before you pose a question, Karen, or mention about FinTech Booster, I was going to ask the three of you whether you think that compliance is a necessary prerequisite before you start a fintech program or project. And I would recommend everyone here that if you are interested to do fintech or any startup, in fact, please look at rules and regulation. We work with Sandbox also, Sandbox applicants. Recently, I was helping a pet insurance company to go into Sandbox. It is very tough to get into Bank Negara Sandbox. But the most important character, in my view, is about the enthusiasm, never giving up, like what Chris said. Absolutely resonates with me. I see that all the time. In fact, it's very similar to running a law firm. We cannot give up when we run a law firm. But at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, I also want to add on that we have to look at the few new incoming, which even my law firm is keeping an eye on it, the new incoming technologies like AI. Everyone is talking about ChatGPT, just one, but AI is crucial simply because Europe is going to start regulating AI soon. And if you know European Union start regulating, it means it will come here soon. Like the way they regulated recently the PDPA, which changed the whole way of us looking at PDPA. We also need to look at metaverse, because metaverse is a massive potential commercial project all over the world. If we don't take it up, then we'll lose out to other regions, which means for lawyers, we have been studying for over a year to see whether we can comply. And the other area is Web3. Even Karen mentioned it. We need to look at how we are going to decentralize the web. And once it's decentralized, if it does happen in the next maybe 10 to 20 years, how are we going to make payments? Because most of the payments are through centralized portals, you know. So if we decentralize it, I do wonder how are we going to regulate it, which means our current Financial Services Act may be redundant. So we need to review the law again. So my question, actually not really a question, but more of a poser to my learned panels, is that perhaps do you think that for any young entrepreneur, other than enthusiasm and passion, that you really need to, like Karen said, kena baca, must read. You're right, Karen. Every time we come and ask us a question, I feel like telling the person, bro, you just, use Google, you can find it, even if you don't
Read it up, isn't it?
Yeah. Read up will be better, but if you kind of like lazy, just click the 2-3 words, you'll be there. But they want us to give them free answers, which is okay. It makes me relevant. I don't mind. I get paid for it. It's okay. But don't you think that other than passion and enthusiasm, the requirement of compliance, like my little friend from MBank, the knowledge of basic knowledge of regulation is crucial before we go into a project on fintech. Thank you very much.
Doctor, I forgot it. I mean,
No, it's okay.
yeah.
It's okay.
Anyway, good, interesting insights. Very quickly, because I think we are running short of time. And very quickly, what are your thoughts around what Richard said just now?
I think anyone who wants to go into fintech should read the law, the compliance, or any other part of the regulation, because that's the rule book for you to play. And I think the critical manner is that you should not just read the rule book, you should understand the principle behind the rule book. Because a lot of times when people read the rule book, they just read it, they don't understand it deeply. And a lot of times when you compare to how banks actually do it, there are things. For example, I just want to give a very quick example. When we want to do credit card processing, whatnot, banks will always ask, previously, a long time ago, I think some still do you have a signboard? Can you take a picture of your signboard before I process it? You look at it and you ask this kind of thing, you say, wow, this is stupid, or this is not good, whatever. But long time ago, when the risk compliance officer wrote it, there's a lot of good logic. Because for you to have a signboard, you need to have a DBKL or a license. It means that someone has vetted through you, and there are many different principles behind that ruling. Of course, depending on whether you read the risk policy of the banks, you read the PayNet guideline or Bank Negara guideline, you really understanding the principle. Now, then you ask yourself, when you deploy this principle, this is to actually to understand that, okay, they have done through these 3 or 4 steps of the process. Now, can you actually use technology to fulfill that principle to do that? So reading the guideline, reading the rule book becomes a competitive advantage, because some of your peers, like the banks, might not just read it and they understand it 10 years ago and they still apply it the same way. But for a fintech project to read it, to understand the principle is crucial because this is your competitive advantage. I think to me, that's the basic way to play if you want to play in this game, generally.
Not only read, understand the rationale.
Yeah, principle, yeah.
Otherwise, it will be literal. So, Julian.
I think you know, I don't like reading rules and laws, and I'm very lazy. So I take the easy way out. I outsource it to the best, right? We will hire lawyers and we will hire compliance people to do it for us. And I'm very happy to hear that there is actually a compliance app around to do all that dirty work for us. But also, I think more importantly, we're as fintech and as startup people, we're here to break rules, right? We want to see what rules we can break so that we can come up with a product, and then later on the regulators would just work around us, right? I think.
So there's the thing. I mean, earlier in the week, we hear, last week actually, we hear things about proportional regulation. So that's where that is actually key. Some say, break the rules and ask for forgiveness later, and those are one of the things that you heard it from a serial entrepreneur himself. Karen.
I see like most of the students have left already. These are mostly the academic. Is to encourage the youngsters to expand their mind, because fintech as an industry, we need more than just financial people, people like Julian, who ex-investment bankers. We have coders and etc. Fintech companies also need HR, marketing, content creator, right? So all these are relevant information for your career or careers of your students.
Okay, I think that's all the time that we have for, and I thank you all for your active participation, and maybe back to you, Andre. And can you please give a huge round of applause to our panelists? Thank you very much.
Wow. Aslina is taking over my job. No, okay. I think one more round of applause as we gather everyone up on stage to take a picture together. When the students left, the energy level seems like very low. I mean, as there's the photos taking section, I think just a few key recap of the session itself, right? I think first thing is really learn through mistake and fail fast, right? Be really thick-faced, right? Because every challenges is a journey for you to grow and be better, right? Number two, I think risk is sometimes your friend. So learn how to manage your risk. Last one, I think in terms of one of the relevant key takeaway, regulator, technology, and consumer, right? Despite having critical thinking, it's very important to understand compliance, understand the rules, read up, all right? I mean, you can also reach out to the lawyer firm, but read up yourself, do your own due diligence. Number two, technology is a vehicle, right? You need to be clear of what your product is, then identify what other vehicle that you want to use, right? And then lastly, understand consumers, right? Understand the users, right? Your user experience. Those are important things. I hope you all can take that away as you go for your morning tea and coffee break, as well as some toilet break, right? So it's 11:05 right now. We'll come back here at 11:20 into the hall. I'll see you all. Light refreshments will be served outside. Enjoy, and I'll see you again. Don't run away. Okay. go back to their seats. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome, Mr. President. Lie. Come on. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope the caffeine and toilet break get you even more excited after this. All right. As people are moving in and settling down, maybe let me just talk a little bit about the next session, right? So the second panel session and last session for today is mainly on the cybersecurity and fraud in digital payments, right? I think we're now transitioning into a quite an important panel session. We need to be very serious, right? Because this is a critical aspect of digital payment itself. I think there are some questions that are preloaded, right? We got an mBank friend that is very passionate about cybersecurity. So maybe rest assured, your money is safe with mBank. I think so. So then during this panel session itself, right, our panelists will delve into the complexity of cybersecurity. How do you then, especially in the realm of digital payment itself, right? They will discuss a little bit about the evolving nature of cyber threats, what are the key gaps and challenges in the industry itself, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, right, get ready to dive deep into the world of cybersecurity and fraud prevention in digital payments as we kick off this engaging panel session. Let's welcome, no, let's not welcome them first, right? We are honored to have a panelist of 4 self-acclaimed hot guys, right? They said they are very hot. And also industry-leading Chief Information Security Officer, right? Maybe we need some women as CISO already, right? Not all guys, right? So welcoming our moderator for this session, Mailing Mudin, right? CISO of PayNet, with the pocket square and all, right? On the panel, we have Clarence Chan, partner of PwC Malaysia. Shankar Krishnan, CISO of Boost. William Song, Group CISO of Alliance Bank. Alliance Bank secure also, not only mBank, okay? Right, Mel, over to you. Floor is yours.
Thanks, Henry. Good afternoon, everyone. Or is it morning? Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. We have a great panelist today talking about cybersecurity and fraud and scams. Actually, we're not going to talk about all that. Are we? No, right? We're going to talk about a little bit more deep dive into cybersecurity and including, day-to-day jobs of our fellow CISOs and consultants here. I have prepared about 120 questions. Sorry, just kidding. Welcome questions from the audience. There is one burning question. We'll address that later. But the first question I'm going to ask all 3 panelists today is what, right, nowadays is the most, or what's the most significant threats, right, that you see facing your organizations, right? But not just your organizations, but your customers, your business partners, your suppliers, and your vendors today. I'll start with William and then move to Shankar and Clarence. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. I thought the sequence would go like this, but knowing Mel, I do know your style very well. Okay, good morning, everybody. I think the threats from the bank perspective, right? I would like to see. I would like to probably brief a little bit. Actually, nowadays I see a lot of threats from insider threats as well. Yeah, we don't talk about insider threats in the past. We talk about insider threats now. AI is also a threat now, where, you know, especially eKYC, when we do the customer verifications, where you can just swap your face like 1-2 seconds, you know, with the video call. It's actually kind of scary to me. Yeah. Also, the old technology, like people try to fraud things like phishing. You know, people are still talking about phishing, and then credit cards and all stuff. So we're trying to innovate a few things to try to solve all these problems now. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning still. So my name is Shankar. I'm part of the Boost ecosystem. So threats, it is a very broad term, right? And to be honest, the world we live in, there are a lot many, and everything is equally important. Although we say that we want to put a category against it, we say insider threat, we say phishing, we say ransomware, right? So I think as an industry, every threat starts as small and they really evolve to be much more bigger, right? It again depends on, as an organization, how much you pay attention to it. I was, as part of our normal routine as CISOs and as a part of hygiene of the company, what we do, one very important thing is, performing this something called a scans law, which we use a word called vulnerability scans. Basically, you go to your infrastructure and you scan and see, okay, how much am I exposed to? And then you make a subjective call and say, okay, these are my high threats. I need to fix them now. This, I can maybe live with it, right? Whatever is the way of method we go towards. But if you see as an industry, and there are a lot of surveys now which are out, earlier the common perception was, we always used to say anything which is high, critical, we focus, we try to get it fixed. But all the more, the attackers or threat actors are now more focusing on the issues which are more minuscule, the medium and the low issues, which was normally you don't focus on low-hanging, like this is not a low-hanging fruit, right? You normally try to fix the most critical ones as a priority, and you don't look at and you ignore them. And that's, for me, I feel is becoming all the more threats because there are more targeted attacks where people are trying to always look at the blind spots, which you don't want to normally pay attention to. You put your focus on something, and that's where it comes in, right? And as an industry, as somebody said, right, it's a lot more. We are in the digital ecosystem. So the most eminent threat, which we always say as CISOs, our biggest worry is when am I going, not a worry, like if I get breached, or, and when I get breached, how can I react to it? And how soon am I going to be able to support the business to be up and running? So I think for me, it's also about how are you able to ensure you are analyzing maybe the threats from an industry which is coming to you and trying to be 2 or 3 steps ahead, right? So if I were to just put it in 3 buckets, I would say, as you said, outside-in approach, you want to take customer security and how are you going making it better. Internal, inside out, you speak about all your other threats which are there as an organization. And the final one, which is encapsulates everything now as an industry in the digital ecosystem, is around frauds and ransomware, if you want to call. Yeah.
It's rather unfortunate, right? I'm the third one. So I concur with both gentlemen, what they have actually shared. The easy way out. But yeah, I think both William as well as Shankar has pretty much summarized, all the key points, right? But maybe perhaps, I was just sharing with Shankar earlier when we were having a bit of a chat. People tend to get drawn into, cyber breaches, right? Thinking of, the scams, right? There's a lot of issues about, customer fraud, scams that's going on, right? And I always like to sort of, I thought it was a very nice, sorry, Ken, I'm going to quote you here. He once told me, Malaysia is the center of excellence for scammers, right? And there's some truth behind it, right? I think, there's a lot of sort of fraudsters. and scams and the modus operandi is very targeted on, or basically sort of victimized, right, on people who are a little bit, I would say, lack of awareness in terms of, what's going on and what's, should be shared, not to be shared. And it's becoming a little bit of an issue to tackle, right? And it's a tough one for plenty of organizations. I'll give you an example. Whatever that you have seen in the news, right, in the headlines, when you try to sort of dive into it, most of the incidents and events, right, are not at the fault of whoever the service providers are, right? The truth and the reality is as such. But very often, very unfortunately, either the bank or the financial institutions or the payment service providers' names are in the headline, right? But in reality, when you go deep dive, there's a big part about human factor, people awareness, right? Have we been tricked and scammed into giving away our passwords, our multi-factor authentications, right? There's only so much from a technology standpoint that you can do or measures that you can put in place. But if you willingly choose to give away some of these, passwords and your authentications or credentials, right? The hackers or the fraudsters or the scammers can just take advantage of it, right? Now, but the other side of the argument is very true as well. How would I know in what circumstances and situations that is a scam mail, that is a scam message, right? It's very difficult for me to decipher and to even sort of, interpret, right? So I would say, to sum it up, I think the biggest challenge faced by most of the organizations, right, apart from dealing with, their infrastructure security, the compliance requirements, the so-called growing sort of threat actors, right, and the movements, right, it's about dealing with people, right, being insider, right, threats, or be it, your customers in terms of how do you elevate the awareness. Yeah.
Thanks. Very interesting. Now that we are talking about scams and fraud, here's my take on it as well, right? Before I ask the question how we fix it, the way that I see it, I think the question is, what are the vulnerabilities that exist in the ecosystem or in the fintech or in the financial ecosystem that has been exploited by scammers and fraudsters. So what are those vulnerabilities? And I put it into three categories, right? The first category is what I call a ecosystem vulnerabilities, essentially meaning weaknesses in controls in the ecosystem. And one of the good example of that is the use of SMS OTP, right? As means of a third factor authentication to authenticate a transaction. However, SMS OTPs are susceptible to be intercepted or read by the scammers due to the second type of vulnerabilities, which is the systems or application vulnerabilities that is prevalent in operating systems such as Android, where it enables, right, installation of unauthorized APKs or Android apps from unofficial app store, right? And how those applications get installed is through exploiting the third vulnerabilities, which is the human vulnerabilities. People who has been lured or tricked into installing malicious apps in order to procure services, and those apps actually captures the usernames, the credentials of the banking apps, and also the SMS OTP. So it's a combination of three vulnerabilities. And my question is to the panelists, right? How do then organizations, be it the banks or the fintechs or even the industry, the regulatory body, the policies, policy makers, for example, could solve this problem? How can we be better at solving these three types of, fixing these three vulnerabilities and hopefully reducing frauds and scams?
Maybe I'll just take it up, right? The topic of fraud is pretty broad, okay? I think most organizations, the most common, I don't know, should I say a mistake or most common perception is anything comes to fraud or things, is cybersecurity is the one needs to take care of it. I think it's not such a point, right? It's a more collective effort, because cybersecurity as a function is an enabler for business. That should be the key thing, how an organization should look at security. And what are you trying to bring in measures into the way Mel put it out very nicely into different buckets, right? Now, obviously, if I just take example of one of the buckets, right? Let's say your ecosystem players, right? Now, obviously, as a part of the services, let's say in the fintech industry or whatnot, we are reliant on a lot of third parties, service providers. It could be, as a part of the app we build, we use a lot of APIs, right? Now, these APIs could be certain proprietary, certain third party, certain open source. Now, what happens is when you're all bringing it together to an organization, right? It basically, the app you're building, you might encapsulate it having a lot of processes implemented, right? Like in the industry, very common term you use penetration testing, right? Now, penetration is a very broad term to use, right? But what they actually do is they try to see the application you package out is checked from multiple different aspects of it, correct? And it's very important to go back to look at the ecosystem, have a visibility, because that's the biggest risk we are seeing now, as most of the, the CISOs working as a fintech industry or digital or tech-based industry is, you have so many ecosystem players. It could also be a telco, right? A simple example, it's a very wrong topic to breach, but you talk about telcos and you're saying SMS OTPs. Now, OTPs are delivered through your SMS gateways, which are managed, let's say, by the telcos. Now, they have an issue or a vulnerability through which the attackers are able to sniff and get the OTPs, right? And then they're able to really replay it out. Now, this is something called as something being out of your control. A simple example, in an organization you work, your boss sets you a KPI, which is not directly linked to you to perform it, but it depends on somebody else to deliver it for you. But it still becomes your KPI because, let's say, it's under security, you're responsible. So that's why I think as an industry or as a CISO or as general, right, it's a very collaborative effort towards driving towards fraud. When it's a third party, you or ecosystem, we talk about your risk, your compliance, your business functions who are going to be engaging, as well as your security and others who play a very active role in educating them. B, I say very important is have an oversight on them in terms of what they are doing, at least have a good understanding in terms to their risk exposure. Have they got compromised anywhere? Have they have any other issue? And I say C, which is very important, is to have, I think regulators are putting a lot of clear guidance on it. Like even look at PayNet or you look at even Bank Negara, they have very good guidelines on outsourcing policies around RMIT, around this, to give you what you expect in terms of a third party from a contractual obligation. You ensure you have it recorded clearly so that you are aware of the risk, and if eventuality, you're at least able to manage those risks internally. I think that's how we should would be a very important thing to look at here.
Did you get William or Clarence on that?
Okay. Just to add on what Shankar just mentioned, I think the key point here actually, he talks about third party vendor vulnerabilities and risks, and then we talk about OTP. So I would like to talk about from the high level perspective, right? The ecosystem as well. The ecosystem, how do you look at from an ecosystem perspective? So to me, to protect an organization, regardless whether bank, fintech, or any organization, probably to probably indirectly answer the questions from a gentleman from MBank as well. What are the criteria and perspective to look at? I think probably from a broad level, maybe you can think of from a people, process, and technology, 3 areas to look at. And also, if you want to deep dive, right, probably can also be good at pre-incident, post-incident, and during incidents. You need to have all these things in the step-by-step, our SOP procedures, and also cyber drill as well, to really practice it, before it comes. Before it hits you, like example, ransomware, right? Everybody say ransomware is an old school thing, but you see a lot of people still falls in ransomware, right? Recently. So how do you actually react on it? So you don't wait for things to happen. You actually react on it so that all departments are ready for it. So that kind of thing to me is, everybody say it's a basic thing, but I don't see people start really serious on that, right? So people start to be go back to the basic, right? It's still the same thing, but you need to incorporate all these practices into your organization. So that is actually where I always think of it like architect of the entire ecosystem, right? I really enjoy doing it. I'm really passionate about it. But when you need that key persons to run the show, you need to actually ensure the entire organization is really into it. Like Shankar said, the human factor, right? Human is, people keep saying human is the weakest link from our school when we were in university time. I sort of not agree now, because we have so much of technology nowadays. Everybody knows what's the phishing, you know, everybody knows what's history. But there's also people still falls into it, right? Sometimes actually, when you think of it, you can actually have a lot of practice or drill before it happens, right? To know what is your, probably your maturity score, you know, we talk about CRMA, cyber risk maturity assessment. You can do that kind of assessment into your organization to ensure that you are actually prepared for it. So I would like to talk from this angle, high level perspective, to get yourself ready for it. I think it's very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So Clarence, thanks for the views, William and Shankar, right, of the things that your organization is doing and what should be done as a whole, all the way from protecting your customers, your internal staff, having a third-party program management, and so on and so forth. Right. So, Clarence, in your view, based on your interaction with your clients, what are the other ways that what are the cybersecurity strategies, right, of your clients that you've seen maybe slightly different from what Shankar and William has mentioned? How do they do things differently to strengthen their cybersecurity posture or even their cybersecurity maturity?
Well, apart from, now I think if you look across organizations in Malaysia, I think, we all agree that generally, I think there's a bit of a lacking in terms of commitment, right, from the top, right? I think we have organizations where board members, senior managements are very committed into business issues, right? ESG being a hot topic, for example, everyone jumped into it overnight. Many of them became an expert, right? But specifically for cyber, I think weight has been given, don't get me wrong, but not many are able to sort of, interpret or be able to sort of understand the risks in its entirety. And that becomes an issue, right? Specifically for enterprises and corporates, right? Because it's very difficult to sometimes justify the level of investments to be put into, right? And clearly, I think the CISOs, the security officers, as well as the security team, a lot of times things cannot be tackled, right? Without the resources, without the commitment from the organizations. And times and again, I see that being a little bit of a showstopper, right? For things to be done right. And companies that tend to have, right, I've seen, right, myself, board members roll up their sleeves, come to the ground, look at how Security Operations Center works, how many alerts they get in a day, and the alerts that they have to sort of, narrow down to which are the actual breach, right? That sort of level of effort, unless they really spend time, understand what it means, the level of effort that needs to be put into. Otherwise, many organizations find themselves, in that kind of conundrum, right? That they want to improve, they couldn't, right? But organizations, to your point, I think, Mel, companies that have done well tend to have, the tone from the top that is done right, and then the commitment from senior management as well, all the way to board members as well, understanding very, very truthfully, what is the issues with cyber and how to tackle it.
Yeah, thanks for that. So the key thing here, right, is not just having prevention, detection in place, but not just the technology aspects of it, but getting the commitment, the tone from the top all the way from the board. And I totally agree with you on that note, Clarence. However, I'm going to use a very colorful language here, right? Shit happens, right? Even the best cybersecurity company in the world got hacked, the likes of FireEye, right? Even the most well-equipped technology company will breach, right? So the question has always been, we invest so much We put in protections. We hired the best minds, the best security analysts. We bought cutting edge solution, right? But shit happens, right? So is it, is it worth it at the end of the day, right? What else can we do, right? If things happen. So we'd like to hear views from William and Shankar.
It's a very difficult, right? It's like a boardroom question. You go to the board and they're like, okay, like Clarence said, the commitment to the top, we give you the commitment. You get this much budget, go spend. And give us the value that we're going to be risk-free. All right. So it's a very common question. Can you assure me you spend this much millions? I'm not going to be breached, right? As a CISO, when you're in a position like that, obviously the answer is not going to be yes, right? Because there's so many ambiguities. And the way Mel said, there are so many different aspects. The hackers are 10 steps or 20 steps ahead of you, the way you do. And there could be multiple ways you can get compromised. To be honest, La, right, I always, it goes back to the point, it's not always about having the best in breed technology or solutions in place, right? I'll tell you very common mistakes most of us face is we will have a lot of technologies procured, right? You might have your Microsoft, you might have your, as you said, antivirus, McAfee, whatever the big brands in there. But a technology is just a technology, which is just going to be sitting there. And you need to take the ownership to do or configure it right? And one of the common approaches, which are mistakes many people do is, okay, we got the budget. It's like, it's like Raya, let's spend, bang, like everybody goes, and then end of the day, at the end of the year, you start trying to justify back and start showing value creation. You're not able to do that. I think there's no one playbook which could say, this is how you can, make things better, right? The way of doing it for me is you need to have a clear plan in terms to how are you going to take. That's why we always, as cybersecurity, when we go through, we talk about having a robust cybersecurity plan, right? How are you going to approach overall in terms of your adoption. It's very important the plan not only talks about see, if cybersecurity plan works in a very silo base without considering how the business is growing, you're never going to be convincing your CEO, right? Your CEO is like, I'm just putting money into a ditch and I'm never going to get returns, right? It should be very, very much aligned with your organization's goal. They want to be profitable. They want to do this. They want to acquire more customers, whatever it could be, right? You need to be aligning to that and then bring in those things. So as I said, for me, I always say this to my team, and it's a hard lesson I learned, or at least is a CISO is not a CISO if he's never faced a breach. It's a very important question in a job interview you should ask, right? Because if he has been there, he's done that, he knows the problems, and the problems are unexplainable, and it's very different in any industry you work, right? William will have a very different way in terms of what Clarence might see in across industries playing, and same with Mel, right? So I think we can never press a point and say, yes, this is how is a proper playbook. We can do all the drills. Drills are drills. You still make mistakes. It's like your kid, right? You tell your kid, you teach them, don't do this, don't do this. I was teaching my son cycling yesterday, right? He got a new pair and he was like trying to go through, and he was like, I told him, don't go there, you might fall. I would have told him 20, 25 times, but he still did it. The point sometimes I feel, I shouldn't say this, right? It's a hard lesson you learn, right? Sometimes you really get knocked on your head hard, and then when people realize how it should not, right? And I've seen also work with bigger banks. Over knowledge, over compliance, over awareness is a curse for CISOs. You are just being asked silly questions for hey, can I click on this link? Hey, I got this. What do you think? What should I do? So that also becomes, so it's actually, as an industry, we are trying to create a balance. How can we reach and how far can we reach that? So it's not an easy way to solve, but I think that's how a part of a life, right? Mel started the day-to-day life of a CISO. For us, it's all about knowing the unknown, a lot of ambiguity. Sometimes you don't have a straight answer to the questions coming up. Sometimes you might have the business want to do something else, and then you might think through how to go about it. I think, yeah, that's how it is. I think a lot of our answers are long-winded. I think all of us love to talk, so I think you might need to book.
Yeah, which makes my jobs really easy. Right? That's why I'm here. You know, there's a table between us and the three of them. But if you all have any questions, please prepare your questions. Raise your hands, ask questions, and if there's any, we'll get to your questions. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask a few more questions to the panelists here. I think which resonates with the academia today, right? We've heard the challenges, we heard the skills that is required. It's very unpredictable, according to Shankar. It's like, as a CISO, when you wake up in the morning, it's like walking on landmines. You never know what you're going to step on, right? Now, with that being said, what are the skills then that is required to fight the adversary? If I want to hire like a security guys in my organization, what kind of people do I need, right? Maybe start with you, Clarence, because your kind of job is slightly unique compared to Shankar and William.
My job is to hire a lot of security consultants and security grads, right? Obviously. No, jokes aside, no, that's a very good question, Mel. Now, I think just to draw on to the point that I think was William who mentioned it, right? And I believe Shankar sort of concurred to that as well, is that what we generally see is that there's a lot of, companies spend on technology, right? A lot. But what we often find is that, when a breach happens, again, right, apart from, the processes in place, but it's also about the talent and the people behind running those technologies, right? Do they have the right competencies, right? Do they have the right level of experience? And do they see security issues beyond just the 0 and 1s, right? Or just a plain alert, right? And how do they sort of do their diagnosis, right? Those sort of skill sets are beyond just, technology, I would say, right? Unfortunately, right? It's beyond just technology. I remember just a few months ago, I came to APU as well, and I gave a talk to a lot of your students, right? I share the same sort of views, right? A lot of them get very excited about doing hackings, penetration testings, playing with, hashcats, a lot of tools that, is out there, right? Metasploit. But really it's about applying it, right? And thinking how a fraudster works. How does it translate to business issues, right? The value creations, value translations, right? Is where I feel, in general, I think a lot of the security grads and talents that I hire, right, tend to struggle a little bit, right? But the good thing is that I personally have attempted this, right? If you follow me on LinkedIn, you would have seen, right? I've personally trained non-com science, non-IT grad into OSCP certified, right? Into a hacker, in short. I've personally sort of shaped a very technical individual, right? Alex being one of them, into a person who have the business acumen, right? To be able to speak to someone at the senior level, a business leaders, or even, the board members, right? To translate what security means, right, to a business. And I feel that I think, being in the academic line, as well as, for many of the students here, if there are any, right, I think it's very important that don't forget that at the end of the day, I personally, I studied IT as well. I used to be very geeky. I used to be, I think I still am. I personally have gone through that phase of struggle, right? How do you translate, right, technical terms into something that is business friendly to get buy-in, right? To me, that is utmost important.
William, what do you think?
I totally agree with him. Yeah, I also went through the struggle. Just now, the gentleman before us, right? He talks about generalists and specialists. So I was a specialist in IT security engineering during my younger days. Yeah, I actually like to be staying in the cubicle, especially talking to, sometimes we report to the Americans, right? They always think that, "Hey, our technology is better than you." So we compete, try to compete each other's. So it's a nice compete, but we stay in the cubicles and we actually talk to mostly to your senior management. But actually things happen. Then I actually, along the way, I fine-tune myself. I think that I can train more people, to be like me myself. Then I evolve and join as a senior management to be from a specialist to a generalist. In a way, we are also probably a mini entrepreneur if you really run a show of CISO in a bank or in a fintech, because we train people and also they are actually our subset, to become successful, make sure they are successful in a career. So to me, to find a different flavors of people, especially joining your team, is a very crucial decision. Like my younger days, I want to find, and I always stick with same crowd of people. But when I actually join organizations, the more of it, when you join as a global or regional manager, diversity is very important. You need to find different people to do different job, and you need to suit to their character. I also joined some courses like calculating your birth date. A lot of people do not know this trick. Before I hire you, I have did one more thing to calculate their birth date as well, to know what sort of character they are. Sometimes it's about 70, 80% accurate, but people will say, why do you do that extra mile? Let the HR do their job, right? But the mathematics sometimes is a science, right? When you actually works, then we will know what to put them and fit them into which career. And the lesser of successful, the failure rate is lesser, because I have done that before. So to me, that is how I craft my team as well in a bank or regional positions, right? Because this is actually very important for us. Everyone likes to enjoy their job. But the problem here is when you are young, you do not know whether you will stick with this job forever. Hence, you actually need to fine-tune it.
We have a question.
Yes.
From Azlina.
I just wanted to kind of like spice things up a bit. I have a question for any of the CISO. Maybe also you, Clarence. Yep. And I think you're a CISO as well. So all four of you. Yep. So the question is, because I kind of like the idea that you mentioned around you got to have a breach for you to learn. And you're not a CISO unless you've learned something from a breach, right? Now, one thing that I don't really see in the local academic scene is that there's no certification or qualification in ethical hacking. Is there any? Right. So gentlemen, because there's actually an occupation outside the country that people actually hire you to breach, right? Where do you see the future in that? Do you hire an ethical hacker?
Maybe I'll start it up, right? There are a lot of courses. The problem is it's an overload of courses we go through in the industry, and it's about choosing what you want. The key message is, I think when you pass out of university and what we're trying to do, we learn a lot of technical aspects, how to do whatnot. The most important thing we miss out, as I feel as an industry, especially in cybersecurity, is the very basic of how should you communicate about something. This is, I'll tell you, it's as you want to grow in an organization, want to reach a particular levels or what you want to do, communication solves 70 to 80% of your problems, right? I think certifications, you have a lot many, you can use them, you can help you to enhance your skill. COVID was the best time, right? You see so many companies opened up, everybody had their own ways, freeware, free courses. We could have, especially the batch, so was there during that time, they could have really learned a lot more and sometimes used it as a part of the skills when they're coming to organization. And I think most of us now are purely as, if I have to evaluate a candidate, right, and we look at the non-cyber component on his knowledge. So hacking, or, when you saw ethical hacking, doesn't only mean you're good how to find a problem, but you also need to be good at a lot of facets. How can I have a mechanism to fool somebody, right? Maybe I can, how has a capability to go and send a phishing link to somebody and lure him to click. It's a different skill. How am I knowing the knowledge of coding, right? Software development, you say. It's important. How do I understand cloud and the infrastructure? Because it's a very lot of faceted learning over which you put cybersecurity as a layer, which helps you to put that, correct? And I think being technical is one, as a work stream you go about, but being technical is just, I strongly believe, would help you to reach as an SME, but communication is what will help you to cross the barrier. And I think that's where, as academy, I don't know how our curriculum programs are, right? Sorry, please excuse me on that, because it's also about how are we taking an approach to the students? Are we giving them the opportunity to understand and communicate, right? Are you giving them the mindset? I always say this, right? The mindset is important, right? Problem solving, or whatever you want to call, it's an important thing. How are we embedding the mindset into the individual so that how they tackle an issue or a problem, and how are they able to explain to people very clearly? And that only goes about, I think, at the university level. I was just talking with the senior director of HR with PayNet about how it has to go back to the grassroots level, right? Because it's a very strong collaboration at your schooling, right? How did they teach you? In schooling, it's always been a rat race, at least in my times. I think now with international schools coming in, is becoming better. They try to think you out of the box and give you a lot more way to present. How can you be socially be able to connect? I think those all facets will put a lot of collaboration with the government agencies, how they put through industry like ours, right? I was telling William the other day, we as an industry, looking at the guys from the industry, like Clarence is there, William is there, they come and give those talks. Give them what is it, right? We always say this, right? What you read and study and what you do on ground is way different. It's always concept. Same thing goes with certifications as well. They just give you the concept, but it's about execution is a very different skill. I think it's important we embed it so that when they come in, when I evaluate a candidate fresh out of college, I just look at his mindset. It's very important for me. You can teach people, you can groom them the way you want because they're easy to be molded. But you need to be having a mindset of open to learn. And actually, that's also a bit of flip side in the current generation we live, right? My team, I just say this, right? My team is very open. Boss, I'm not worried about career growth. I need money, or I want to leave, right? So it's also a point in terms of how they think. It's a bit different in the way they are happy with short-term success, easy way outs, right? Obviously, they are also hungry to learn more, but if there is something more exciting, jump, right? So I think that's where a lot of FIs, traditional banks, consulting, all of us, right? Or even fintechs are trying to change the norm. The way your work culture becomes, you kind of go more in t-shirt, the way Mel said, more sexy, wearing, more easy way going out to your offices and try to have that. Rather than earlier in consulting, when I was there, it's always about wearing a suit, right? And the first week I joined Boost, my CEO looked at me and said, I hope you remember where you're coming now. You change your work, right? Because I was still used to wearing a suit and a tie, which was not the culture, right? I think it's just about also giving a realistic view. It could be industry engagement where they give a practical sense, and the academia can also benefit, right? I think that's how you look at it. But I'm sorry, I'm just giving a long-ended answer, but the key point is certification is there, but there are a lot of them, but it's about somebody giving a guidance as well. And I'll be honest, there are a lot of people like Clarence, right, mentors, who are happy to give people guidance as pro bono basis so that they can have a good career and they can select how they want to go about it, right? Yeah.
Thanks, Shankar. Any questions from the audience? Yes, question from the lady here. Please state your name, where you're from, and your questions, please.
Hi, good morning, all the panelists and everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, sorry. I am Libby. I'm from TAR UMT. I'm an academician as well as a consumer, if you will, of a lot of fintech apps. I'm speaking on behalf of the most neglected group of the society, which is our seniors, right? From the earliest day until now, I have seen a lack of attention on the most vulnerable groups, that most of the cybersecurity threat is happening to the seniors group. And I would like to ask the panelists, what do you do to protect these group of people, i.e. our parents? Because if I teach my students, they are more likely to understand what is cybersecurity threat than my parents, right? And from a simple term, I like to protect my parents. That's all. So the more advanced our country and the globe's moving forward, we kind of neglected them, if I would say. And how would these enterprises protect them? Because our nation, the whole world, so to speak, is growing to more aging population. And so yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
William has volunteered to answer the tough question.
I run a mini bank in my family, just for your information. I have a 84 years old dad and mom. So they actually really like to involve in social media. And they like those, TV box thing. They like to call you, this and that. So the first thing I do is change their phone to iPhone. This is not what I recommend, but this is what I did, right? Because so that my life is easier. So whatever you click, at least I want you to channel from download from the Apple Store first thing, right? Of course, you can Google the reason. I don't want to mention it here.
You have two
Yeah.
CISOs have already indirectly mentioned about.
Yeah. So that's the first thing I did. First priority things that I do. The secondly is actually when he is doing social media. I believe you meant social media, right? So social media, normally they will go and watch YouTube. That's the fastest thing because you just click video and they just want to learn something and just trying to be entertained, right? And whenever they clicks, you cannot control because it's just like a kid, right? You cannot control. But what I normally do with them is when you chat with people and when they send something to you, don't respond to it. That's the second thing that I talk to my parents. And you can talk to them, but if they send you a link, send you a file, don't click on it. Just ignore. Because sometimes from an Asian mentality, probably you feel bad to reject people, right? So I told my dad and my mom, it's okay to reject people because they don't know you anyway. I don't ask them to put photo. So it's okay to reject. They don't even know who you are, where you exist, where do you stay. So it's okay to reject. So the mentality is actually, the readiness of mentality is actually, I try to tell them what they need to do before they go in. The third thing is, actually, I act as a fraudster and so-called a good hacker. I actually hack them by myself. I tried to put in a beautiful girls to talk to my dad. I did that, seriously. And I also pretend to be like, a rich man talking to my mom, that kind of thing. See whether, it's like a fishing, it's a mini fishing to my mom and dad to see whether they really follow my advice. And then I fine tune along the way and tell them, hey, this is me, by the way, just testing you, yeah. So probably I do believe this is hands-on. I'm a hands-on guy. So actually, I think I run a mini bank, like I say, how I treat my parents is how I treat them in my staff are using SOP as well. So I think they benefited from it as well. I hope this is actually useful for you. Thanks.
Okay, maybe just add on I don't do a phishing test on them. Not to the extent, but you gave me a very fresh, good idea. I should probably do that. I just hope the response from my dad is not gonna be. No, but I did sort of use a very similar sort of analogy, right, to my parents before, right? My dad came to me and asked me, when would I know? I mean, someone sent me a link, right, and a file. Should I not accept? Why should I not accept? I say, if you think about in a very traditional way, right? And I still remember very vividly. I reminded him when we were young, right? We stay in landed house. There were parcels, mails that were sent to you, to your house, to your home. I asked him that question. What did you do back then? Quickly sort of report police or just at least throw it away, right? Scaring that there are something inside the parcel, right? So I say, using the same concept, right? Wouldn't it be true if someone sent you a link or some files, right? Would you want to open it or should you decide not to open it, right? It's the same decision making a lot of times, right? But it's just that because the way that we interact with our digital devices these days is that, anything that comes through, I'll just turn it on. I'll just open it, click it, right? Now, the first question is always asking, where does this letter come from? Right? Traditionally, you guys look at the letter, flip behind and look at who sent you. Are you anticipating this letter? Right? It's a very common thing that we ask ourselves, right? Are you anticipating a letter? From the handwriting, can you guess roughly who wrote you the letter? And when there's content, would you press on it a little bit and feel what it is about and throw it away? If let's say you don't anticipate that mail to come to your doorstep, right? And immediately it clicks. Say, oh, okay. Yeah. Oh. So I think sometimes it's about relating and resonating with some of those traditional practices that they have, been doing, and try to relate it to something that is close to their heart, so that that becomes embedded as a practice. They know when to exercise the judgment, right? Yeah.
Akila, I think as an industry, I think one thing I'll agree. Definitely, there are different maybe players are trying to do that level of education right now. Normally, education is always is more linked with the Gen Z, Gen Y, what I want to call them, right, and more focus around that. But that segment which you said is very vulnerable, and there's not much of awareness. Obviously, the digital media are there, and let's say everybody has got their own ways to deal out and give it to their parents, right? But I feel we need to do more as an industry, get there so that people also have an understanding on what are the risks. It could be through various channels. I don't know, through social media is a great one, right? I do a very different practice. As your parents get older, they really don't want to listen to you, how we were, right, in a teenage. They're like, oh, who are you to advise me, right? And when you start having those kind of challenges, one of the most easy way which I found for them to deal with is they love to send early morning, good morning forwards. Very common law, right? Good morning. And they get very cheesed off at you that you don't reply back, and then you're like, okay, I'm busy, right? So I started sending them the same way, but not daily law, but at least sending them forwards, which are more some videos around the internet or some news articles which talks about all these, right? Oh, old people. So, and one day my dad called me and was like, why are you scaring us, right? I said, no, I'm not scaring. I'm just trying to tell you how it is. So you beware. So one good thing, it's unknowingly, they take it up and they forward to their groups. And they have a lot of groups, right? And they keep on randomly sending out. So in other way, you're kind of creating this awareness in your own way. I'm not saying we've been successful or not. Still, there are so many happening. But it's just a way how we as citizens or individuals can also take this measure, right? We are trying to protect anything and everyone around us. And that could be a good start to us rather than waiting for a bank to sit. Because end of the day, when somebody happens, the bank is just going to say, oh, you didn't follow the practice I told you. It's your responsibility, right? So I think it's for us to see how we can make it better.
Yeah, I think it's a shared responsibility. Everyone needs to play the role, whether it's you as a son or daughter, the industry as a whole as well needs to play the role. The government needs to play the role, giving awareness and all that. So yeah, I think it's a shared responsibility. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. It does not fall on one particular person or organization or individual. Question? Any questions from the floor? Yes, one question from, okay, gentleman at the back, and then we get back to you later.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris. Obviously, we are SIs that are providing solutions around cybersecurity and fraud. My question to the esteemed panel is, today you see there is the growth of AI and ML in cybersecurity and also in fraud. Now, where do you see, my second question would be, where do you see academics or graduates that are coming in the future? Where should they specialize? Should they generalize? And how would ML and AI role play in terms of, even today, if you were to talk about, planning your holiday, ChatGPT plans your holiday and your itinerary. So where does future graduates specialize? Should they specialize? Should they generalize? Where should they focus? That's my question to the panel. Thank you.
Maybe I'll take first. Now, I always believe that in the ecosystem, you need to have a balance of generalists and specialists, right? You need to have the engineers, right? At the same time, you need the generalist, the one that looks after the broader sort of, business aspects of things, the risk governance aspects of things as well, right? Now, the answer to that question is not so much about just cybersecurity. ChatGPT, generative AI, basically is impacting every single sort of domains and industry, right? Now, the good thing is that, and I have no sort of reservations and no shame telling you, even I started to use that, or getting my staff and my talents, right, to start employing some of these technology, and I get better results coming out from it. Be it crafting of phishing emails, right, for our simulations attacks, be it writing reports. The T's and the dots is gone now. Perfect. It used to bother me, right? I think at the end of the day is that you can't say no to technology, and AI ML will stay, right? And in fact, I think it will actually change a lot of the things how we do in our lives. I think all we need to make sure that our talents move up the value chain. So what used to be just doing mundane, repetitive, even coding work, for example, right? Now you can employ some of these technology, right, to supercharge that process. How do you do it, right? Learning from new tools. Actually, it's no difference from many of the conversations that we had with the past technology, if you think about it, right? At one point, people were talking about, would cloud take away, right, IT people jobs? Not true. It created a new whole wave of industry, cloud engineers, cloud architect, cloud specialists, right? Likewise, I see that trend for generative AIs or any sort of machine learning capabilities, right? So it's about really moving up the value chain and really sort of harness, some of these technologies in our day-to-day sort of operations and lives. Don't know whether the rest have anything to share.
Yeah, I just to answer your question just now, to be generalist or specialist, right? There's no right and wrong, right? Sometimes you do not know what you want, but you join first in that career. Then along the way, you find your passion. Some people are just born to be like that. Some people already know what they want from the beginning. So maybe because this is more to an academic industry here, right? So I think probably just a piece of advice here. If I can advise my younger days, probably I will do, especially cybersecurity is a technology industry. You do not need to wait for your instructor, your teacher to tell you on the content. You actually can Google about it, right? It's just like just to quote what Karen said just now, I totally agree with you. You can just Google about it if you like something. You don't need to wait for your instructor to tell you, oh, tomorrow I'm going to teach you cloud. Then tomorrow you come you go back, you can still Google about it, right? And it doesn't stop you to build a simulation. There's a lot of like Metasploit, right? Free tools out there for you to build all kinds of hacker simulation tools. Also, back to your question just now, Azina, do you really need to go for a cert? I don't think so. There's a lot of, and you can buy those like Coursera, you can buy those cheap courses where you can learn all those cybersecurity things, specifically like Metasploit, how I hack, how I pen test, right? You can immediately learn it during like after office hour, right? Or after you study at night, you can actually learn about it. So from there, you will know your passion, whether you like it or not. You're hands-on on it, right? You know you like it or not. Probably you are not so sure, 50-50, then you join the company as an intern, then you just try to make it sure, 100% or 50%, oh, I'm not so sure. But 100% of it after internship, you probably will know whether you like it or not, right? There are people who are not good in technology. Yes, there are. But you guys are good in probably procedure, writing documentations. You like things that are very step by step, right? You can even join IT risk, right? You can join IT risk and compliance team. So in a bank, we call it first level of defense, second level of defense, and third level of defense. First level, you have all those techie guys like security engineer, all those genius are there, right? When you talk to them, they talk about 1 and 0. Second line, you have compliance, IT risk, that sort of like you need to know the regulators' requirements, IT risk. The third line of defense, probably auditor. So you know yourself very well where you want to go. So like Clarence mentioned, this industry can fit everybody. The choices are on the table. There are so many jobs out there for you guys to grab, right? And Malaysia, I can confirm with you, is actually lack of cybersecurity resources. We are dying to have more of you to come and join us. Yeah, thank you.
Just to add on to that as well, I have in PwC, I'm still very proud of this, right? I've turned an ACCA grad who gave up on their ACCA renewal, fortunately, and turned into a hacker and get properly certified OSCP, right? We have a childcare graduate, right, who graduated from Australia, couldn't find a job in Malaysia, obviously, unfortunately, and turned into a cyber governance person, right? We have an electrical E&E, right, engineer, who also sort of reskilled himself and became a cloud risk specialist, right? And we have a comm science graduate of all people ended up doing auditing. So really it's about putting them in a platform, right, to explore and discover what they really like to do. The cyberspace is a broad space, and unlike many people thought about it, right, it's a very technical space. It's not just about technical. It's actually very, very broad range. It has a specialist role. It has a generalist role.
You know, that's a thing, right? Okay, if I look back at myself, okay, I've been in the technology side, blessed at least I'm working in somewhere related to it. I always feel it's a very common that we as parents and as well as the kids, we force them, academy is important. Obviously, it's important. We want to focus. This is a line you're going to take. Right or not, they are inevitably most of a telecommunications graduate, or maybe you could be a chemical engineer, or maybe whatever stream you pick up, right? You inevitably look at an industry, whether the market is there, and you might jump into something else, right? I always feel it's important at the way, like I'm very proud of certain things, like how my children's education are going. Like they come and challenge the way things are. They are putting out a question whether it is required. Obviously, their passion changes every day. One day they want to be a chef, another day they want to be a mechanic, which is okay, right? They're at least calling it out. I remember for us, it was very clear, especially coming from an Indian family. Oh, IT. If you don't do IT, you are like, seriously, what's wrong with you, right? And I still remember the first time I told my parents I'm getting into a information security domain. So my mom like, oh my God, I paid so much money just to be a security guard. Is that what you wanted to do? So I'm like, no, it's not that. So it's about the perception, how it is, and what we're trying to move. And I think this AI, ML, okay, like Google, it's a big source of misinformation, right? My doctor hates it when I go to him with a lot of my pre-notion and come to him and I think I have this, right? He said, please stop Googling. I think the same with academician, right? You guys have people coming and saying I know all. And I think it's also a big source of misinformation and how it has been put out. I think it's also about guiding the students, what's a right way to search, what to go, right? Where the right sources. So at least it gives them the right direction right from start, rather than just doing, like we use the word called as carpet bombing, right? Just search. You got hundreds of articles. You are fascinated with one thing and keep on reading that. I think it's also the way on how we can train the employees to, or rather the students to have a more focused approach towards that. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about being a security guard, my daughter asked me the other day, she needs to write an essay, right, for school. She's in primary 3. And I told her, hey, just write, your dad is a security guard. I didn't see what grade she get, but I think it's probably, something to be proud of. Question from gentleman over there? Yeah.
Good afternoon to all the panelists here. A special thanks to you all. I think it's indeed answered my first questions on how actually the FI and the others relevant stakeholders to combat the fraud and scams related incidents in the electronic banking transactions. Of course, I understood that it's indeed required the collaborative efforts between the FI, the third parties vendor, and also the customer itself. Okay, so from the cybersecurity perspective, of course, we will introduce the enhanced security measures to combat fraud, like what we shared just now, is trying to move away from the SMS OTP to a more secure methods to authorize the transactions. But can we explore from the customer awareness perspective? Of course, there is also a B&M directions to the FI to periodically review and assess the effectiveness of the customer awareness program rollout, which aims to educate the customer, tell them to understand about the fraud risk, and also how not to fall into the victim of the fraud and scam related incidents. So may I have the recommendation provided by the panelists on how the FI should periodically review and assess the effectiveness of the customer awareness program rollout? Thanks.
Good question. I think I'll pass it to William and Shankar to ask, because you guys are from the industry, and yeah, Clarence as well. Yeah.
So probably from I'll start first. Okay. Probably from an FI perspective, right? Customer awareness actually is one of the most difficult way to pass our message to them. I give you a scenario, right? During pandemic, COVID, right? People will see that a lot of people fall into the fraud, phishing fraud, right? Especially if you remember, people give 50% discount for Musang King durian. Yeah, then TMB electricity, because everybody stay at home. They say you download this APK file, you will have 50% of your electricity bill being paid off by this company. So people just download it, and then after that they got scammed, their money being transferred. The next thing, you know what they do? What is bank doing to safeguard my money? So the next thing is like, it's very easy for them to pinpoint their fingers. So from a bank perspective, we cannot actually call a press media and explain to one and every of them, right? It's very difficult. So we actually educate, from the old days where we publish our information in the website to educate you after you log in, or before you log in, the thing prompts out, hey, don't click this, don't take this Musang King, don't press this DMV, that kind of thing. That's during the old days, right? The now, where Bank Negara, I was in the close working group with Bank Negara, and also we are actually having discussion, right, regularly with the CISO forum. It's from all the banks. So basically, we trying to leverage any kinds of platform that working with us, trying to spread that awareness to the customers. So probably from press media, from PayNet, as well as the regulators, they are doing all this great event now. Actually, indirectly, they are spreading all this awareness to the customers out there. And when more and more people fall into this so-called phishing victims, right? And a lot of people start to ask why and how to solve it, right? So a lot of people, if I know them, they will normally come and ask me. Like I was playing a ping pong last Monday with my new neighbor. So while playing ping pong, after that, he asked me this question. He said, hey, is bank really safe? I was like, okay, this again. So I explained, no, that thing again and again. So how to do it effectively is also part of our question. I think Bank Negara is also doing great now, because they actually try to spread a lot of news, a lot of awareness to the customer. Bank Negara is doing a lot, and he's hearing your feedback as well, like OTP. If he's not hearing your feedback, he wouldn't actually stop the SMS OTP, right? So this is one of the steps that is taken by the regulators now. So of course, more and more, please welcome, of course, to give more feedback. And we thought of create a platform to spread the awareness, but we were afraid of people get panic. If that platform you log in, you will get panic. So we need to find a balance of how we spread the awareness to you guys, especially to the customers, so that the end customers, and sometimes they will come to branch, we educate them as well. So from a bank, we do as much as we could. Yeah.
I think your key point is accepting the fact that there is a customer awareness as a need, right? And what are the measurement ways? So you said you are from audit, so obviously you always try to see how can things be improved better, right? So it's a very simple way of doing that, right? We always talk about measurements. In cybersecurity, it's sometimes very difficult to quantify your investments and value, correct? Like you say, I spend $100. How do you quantify back to your management or your board saying, I helped you save 100 million? I'm just saying hypothetically, right? It's not going to be a very easy math to solve. Now, always, whenever you are trying to put out this entire thing about measuring, now, obviously, customer awareness has become a big thing in the industry. Like as he said initially, insider threat. You always looked at information security, cybersecurity as an inside-out approach, okay? But it's very important to look at outside in, which many organizations have realized now, right? I need to more give a customer as an experience. Customer experience means customer trust, customer brand, customer security, right? Now, obviously, initiatives are, you take up initiatives. It could be different, right? You create awareness content, which you say customer security awareness, CSAs, where you might go down, your PR team will come up with some innovative content. Now that obviously will be two-based. One is trigger-based if there have been a lot of breaches, or maybe you see, or maybe as an industry, you're seeing a lot more, you might have that. The other thing is you might invest on technology. And the way to quantify is obviously simple. Look at the measures in terms to what was your rate of frauds or breach happen in terms to before implementation of the controls, which could be a technology. Say, example, you moved away from OTP. You used to have a very targeted OTP-based scams happening a lot. and that yield to implementing a technology like a secure tag or whatever, right, and reduce your fraud rate, that will help you to measure the effectiveness of that customer security measure, right? Now, it could be through an awareness campaign, it could be a technology law. I think it is always to get the data, get the analysis about how as a campaign helped us as an organization to reduce, or as a technology help us to reduce. And that could be actual measurement back that, yes, we're seeing a dip in the frauds, we're seeing a dip in overall successful transactions or security breaches are happening lesser. My contact center, so it's a multi-department, right? You don't go to your fraud, you go to your contact center, your customer. So you might need to get the data to make that basis and then realize now, right? Again, I think as an audit, your point is about how the measurement can be improved. I think based on that, you can look at much more better way, whether it becomes targeted, segmented, like you said, very focused towards senior citizen. Do you have a breakup around target segments, or is it just like spreading it across all of them, right? I think that would be a better way to measure and look through. Yeah.
Mel, if you don't mind, I add on a quick one. So just to add on, right? As much as human can do, right? We spread the awareness, but from our fintech or our boost from Alliance Bank perspective, bank also trying to innovate things to change the old school way of how technology works. Example, we just roll out virtual credit card, first in Malaysia. So why do we roll out this? Because credit card is a so old school way, right? Where you carry a card and you do not know it's very uncertain of that risk when you pass over to your waitress, right? They can go at the back and snap, right? So this, we try to innovate so that we change the culture, change the way of how you do so that you have less worry, right? The random number keep changing. It's actually a virtual credit card. So 16 random number keep changing so that you do not need to worry about the risk anymore. But the problem here is we face another problem. The acceptance rate from the Malaysian, right? It's like we try to tell them this is better, but they will say, but others are not using, So the kind of thing that we are trying to change the mindset and culture so that people can actually accept the new things, especially a better, secure solutions. So that will come. It takes time. So we are working from our part. In the meantime, we are trying to educate the clients and the customers as well. So we have to work hand in hand, I would say. Thanks.
One last question. Any more questions? Otherwise, we close. No? Yes? No? No more. Everybody's ready for lunch. So before we close, really, I mean, we talk about a lot of topics, right? One takeaway from each of you in 5 to 7 words. Clarence, start with you.
Maybe, it was one of the points that I want to share, right? Since it's a session. That was more than 7 words already. Sorry. No, I think for the talents, for students, for academicians, right? I think one thing that we really have to work on is, for the upcoming talents, right? Is really about training our students or talents to focus on problem solving, right? I realize that a lot of times the courses, the syllabus, it's all about the technical know-how, which is great, right? I think that's fundamental. But what problem are you trying to solve? Great, you love hacking. You love doing penetration testing, right? You love sort of, sitting in the SOC, running the operations, but do you know what exactly are you trying to solve as a problem, right? I think that needs to be told and needs to be sort of conveyed to them so that they are more ready and they have the practical sort of put things in a very practical lens when they sort of pursue some of these interests and ideas.
I don't know what takeaway for me. I've been sort of thinking. I think as an industry, if I had to say a simple word, let's all please use some common sense, right? So I think it's very important because that's how cybersecurity is all about. And if we have that, and even that we educate, the students in the academia, we all use that as a way. I think that's gonna kind of seal up everything. Yeah.
Very difficult to sum up, but I would say be passionate about what you do, right? Make sure you get up and you feel passionate to go to work when all the students joining the workforce. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think a lot of teachers say, don't make mistakes. It's okay to make mistake, but that's why I say you go and create a simulation test, if cybersecurity simulation, you make all the mistakes there, then you will eventually find, it's just like doctor, right? You have those test lab, right? Even this Iron Man also have his test lab to break all those mistakes, make all his mistakes there, right? So sorry, I'm an Iron Man fans anyway. So you actually like Mel said that he told his kids that he's a security guard. I told my kids that I'm an Iron Man. Think of your daddy like Iron Man. That it sounds so cool, but you know how many problems we face. But you feel great about it, right? You make mistakes, but then you pursue your dream, and don't be afraid when you make mistake, and then just continue doing it and fine tune it. Like I said, that the 3 lines of defense, right? There are many choices of job out there for you to grab. So, and as a teacher here, I saw a lot of teachers here, less students here. I think teacher also need to walk by example lah. So when you ask people to go and work, go and do this and this, but then the student will also look at you and say, have you hands on it, this and that. So that kind of thing probably also we need to bring them along together to test it out, and then bring them out to see the real world. Probably you can visit PayNet, one day, to see how they work on their SOC, this and that, so that they have a better picture of how to practice it in their life. Yeah.
A round of applause, everyone, to our panelists.
All right. Thank you, everyone. May I get the panel to stand up for a photo session? Right. Thank you so much to the panelists. I think just while they're taking a photo, just a quick wrap up, right? Just a quick key takeaway from the session itself. I think cybersecurity and fraud is a shared responsibility. Number 2, now knowledge is now a commodity, so let's have some common sense in doing things. Talent, right? Critical mindset to problem solve stuff, right? Those are key things that we need to look at. And also maybe calculate your own birth date and see what kind of people you are, right? Okay. Thank you. Thank you to the panelists once again. All right. Now, can I have the 5th hot guy in the room, Prof. Ho, to wrap up the session itself?
Thank you, Andre. Well, congratulations, because you have stayed with us until now. I'm quite sure that the 2 panel sessions that we have this morning were so good, right? So can you just join me to to say thank you to all the moderators and panelists again. I also have my own takeaways, right? 2 things. Number 1, in the earlier session, I think the 2 magic words that we heard was the skills which are really lacking. I mean, in this sector is the product manager skill set. Someone who is able to look at the entire value chain end to end and come up with good products, understanding the market, understanding the entire ecosystem. So that was my key takeaway for this morning. So I was paying attention. Yeah. Secondly was just this panel here, very technical guys, CISO guys, but I think one thing that I learned is that cybersecurity is not only about technology, right? I heard the main theme coming from that discussion was that the human aspect of it, the soft skills, the human aspect of it, the psychology of it, right? Things like social engineering and so on. So that is so key. So for the technical guys here, don't forget about that. So to me as well, because I'm a technical person as well. So these are the 2 key takeaways. And once again, thank you to PayNet for letting APU host this wonderful event. I hope all of you have enjoyed it. And the next thing to enjoy is, of course, your lunch. So thank you very much, Andre.
Thank you, Professor. Right. So before we go for lunch, right? Now, without the food, we look a little bit more slim. So the photographer would kindly require everyone to occupy to the middle. Right. For those at the side, let's move to the middle. That side as well. Move to the middle a little bit. Right. There's one seat right in front. Yes, Shankar. All right. Apa. Okay, we just wait for a few gentlemen. Right, photographer, you queue, huh?
Okay, one more. Please start, please start. 1, 2, 3, yay! Kenneth. One more. Okay, 1 year. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. All right.
That, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the academic brownback at APU. Thank you so much for being such a great audience, right? It has been a pleasure emceeing the brownback session itself. See you all next time. Lunch will be served at level 4 at the dining room, right? Enjoy your lunch.